Hey, Internet, we didn't see you there. We were
busy reading letters.
Yes!
we were busy practicing our reading skills because apparently there are letters on all the cameras.
Yes, none of us have ever realized there are letters on the cameras until our stage manager, Joey, pointed it out.
This has changed everything. This has changed everything.
Joey, wave at the cameras.
He's not on
Mystery Joey!
Hey. That's like the Internet waving at us right now.
Yeah.
You did provide us with Mystery Joey art, and I love you very much.
Yeah, thank you for
Internet.
that. You should give us more. Give us more Mystery Joey.
What do you think he's wearing today? Not in a weird way.
Or in a weird way, sure.
Pretty weird. Anyway, guys, welcome to the Wednesday Club, where today we are going to be talking about Spider-Verse, the Spider-Verse.
Well, I mean, let's be honest. Coy's going to the Spider-Verse at us.
It's going to be
about
versus
the
the
Spider-Verse, and we're going to be reacting as best
But
as
in
we
a good
can.
way.
Yes.
So, and who do we have joining us? Starting on the left.
Oh, my name is Matt Key.
Can you say your name and hold the coffee?
I mean,
No, I'm just curious because I do that kind of thing where I'm like, I can't both talk and hold an object.
My name
That's
is
unreasonable.
Matt Key, and hold on. My name is Matt Key.
Okay.
Wow!
Yeah.
Sounded even nicer the third time.
I'm Amy Dallen. I'm not going to try to make it complicated by multitasking.
I'm Coy Jandreau, and I'm the most excited to talk about Spider-Man here today. And I'm wearing an original, this is a Stan Lee sketch, so I wanted to acknowledge the man himself today because it has been a very hard week. But Stan the man, this is his Spider-Man. His Spider-Man.
He's friendly.
He's friendly, and he's from a neighborhood.
Spider-Man.
I like it.
Yeah.
Spider-Man. I'm Markeia McCarty, and those that know, this is like a mini Marvel movie news
Yeah.
reunion
Yeah.
of me, Coy, and Matt. Oh, we did that.
did.
We did that.
We did it.
I guess
it.
And
on
okay,
it twice.
I have to throw out a
Yes.
shout out because there are still some rad people doing that, including our very own Chief.
Yeah.
Yes.
So Chief was our original engineer for Marvel Movie News, and then he was Doom when he was over
voice of
there.
Doom.
The voice of Doom. And then he came over here and TD'd over here, but now he's taking over hosting it. So if you want to know more about the Marvel movies,
If you want,
Chief Doom is
Chief,
great.
Chief to
There
give
you
you the Marvel movie news, now you can have Chief's Marvel movie news.
And I think it's on Thursdays.
Thursdays.
They're moving it to
Yeah.
Thursdays
And
now.
Amy and I do Collider Heroes together on Wednesdays, so there's a whole web, you see, a web.
Web.
A marvelous
Yeah.
web.
Spectacular.
And if you want to be on the other side of the web and do more DC stuff, DC Universe, I'm on that on DC Daily. So, yeah.
Comics.
And who is this lovely
And I'm
gentleman?
Taliesin
that-
Jaffe, and I am here to guide us through this wonderful world of multidimensional spider madness, arachnomania.
Arachnomania.
How
I
has
like
that
it.
not been a storyline?
I know.
It's
It's an arachna marvel.
Now it's canon.
It's a good title.
Dan Slott watches this, right?
Oh, of course.
Yeah. Dan Slott, Arachnomania.
Make it happen.
Nick Spencer's on Amazing now.
Yeah.
Oh, I don't know.
I got you.
Slider
I
has
got
been, Dan Slott has been
Dan
free.
Slider.
Dan
That's
Slider.
Slider.
That's when you get 4 smaller
Hey,
Dan slots on the
alternate-
plate. They're Dan sliders. This is going to be an
Okay.
episode.
I was going to say it's his alternate
like it.
universe spider identity.
Exactly. He's 2818. You know, Earth 2818, obviously.
Dan Slider.
So I have a little intro-y thing that I have planned. It's a little intro-y thing, which
We
is
do
Yes.
it right up.
Spider-Man is really, really fascinating in the same way that Superman and Batman are really, really interesting in the sense that these are comic book characters that are instantly recognizable and identifiable, despite the fact that a lot of people who can recognize and identify them haven't necessarily ever read a comic book before. There's a lot of kids all over the world who know what Spider-Man looks like even before there were movies, but had never really read any Spider-Man. Maybe they'd seen an episode of an animated series. Maybe they owned an action figure, and the action figure is a big thing about this. There's a thing called toyeticism and toyetics, which is the idea that if you have a character that has such an iconic look, and you have a character that has such a powerful image, you can mass produce. You can make you can start to deviate upon that and like kind of take new attempts at making that character look interesting, which led to different costume changes sometimes weird toys that didn't necessarily exist before. There was a Japanese spider television show in the '78 that we're going to talk about in a minute. And it's something that's like, as a kid, as an action figure collector, you would have a lot of, I would even paint some of my action figures occasionally to make like a bunch of Green Lanterns, find a bunch of Spider-Man by like painting all my G.I. Joes to look like spider people and giving them different powers.
That is very cool.
I'll
That is
also,
very cool.
I'll also say Spider-Man, and this is worth pointing out, was of all of the big characters that people were into, that were in the mass subconscious of the world, it's the character that wore a mask. which also meant there was a character that anybody, especially if you didn't know a lot about Spider-Man, any kid, and I knew lots of kids who felt this way, I've heard it from a lot of people, who it's instant, it's so easy to put yourself in that suit no matter who you are. I think that really, even without reading the story, I think it was so much easier. It was one of those characters that's super easy to identify with. And he's not flying around and being crazy. He's doing, he's basically, it's that same thing that we all put in our head of swinging around or crawling on walls, or it's just so base.
And his underdogness allowed for the Bagman and like things that were more identifiable to everyone.
Silly and fun. And because of this, at some point, and we're about to get into this, they took all of these little variants and little things that made action figures and decided to turn it into a story. But like, I know you want to go way back, so.
How far back we want to get? 1970s Clone Saga?
I mean, do we have to start with the Clone Saga?
First, okay, here's what I'm gonna start with. There's a movie coming out in a couple weeks. You might have seen some previews for it. We don't talk much about movies on here, so it's possible some of y'all are finding out. I don't know. There's a movie coming out in a couple weeks. Full title is Into the Spider-Verse?
I think so, yeah.
Into the Spider-Verse.
Into the Spider-Verse?
Spider-Man
It might
Into
be
the Spider-Verse or
Spider-Man
something
Into the
like that, yeah.
Spider-Verse. That sounds right.
It is from
Sony.
Sony Animation?
It's Sony Animation, yeah.
I definitely remember all of this. But it looks amazing, and it is starring Spider-Man, but it is starring a version of Spider-Man who is less than 10 years old. Which is actually a a slower jump to the movie, into the movies than, I got really interested in this.
It felt so much longer.
I know, right?
Oh, wow.
So Peter Parker actually made the jump into other mediums really quickly. And I now use this as my benchmark where I'm sort of like, that person's getting a thing already? And it's like, no, actually, he did it in like 4 years. He made it from comic books to animated series in something very, very brief in the 60s.
You're talking about Miles Morales? Or, no, you're talking about
Peter Parker.
Original Peter Parker.
Okay.
So there's a movie coming out soon. It stars a Spider-Man you may or may not already be familiar with, but who is about to take all of our hearts by storm. And it also stars a bunch of other Spider people. Okay, now we can go wherever.
Yeah, because the interdimensional aspect comes to fruition in this, where I think when we see Miles in the movie, he's 13, but then we also have Spider-Gwen, 15. And yeah,
no,
yeah.
there's a few.
Spider-Gwen. You also have Spider-Man Noir, voiced by Nicolas Cage.
Which is
Nicolas
genius.
Cage. Oh my God,
I'm
I
really
love
into this.
I love this dude. He's like a demigod. He's like so authentically him, like all the time, and you gotta respect that.
The noirest of spiders.
Yeah, so you got Spider-Man Noir. I believe Spider-Pig is in there.
Yeah, Peter Porker.
Peter
the
Porker,
Porker.
Spider-Ham!
Spectacular
Spider-Ham, yeah, Peter Porker.
Yeah, I mean, and then from that point on, I confuse the characters that are in there with the characters that I've read in the comics. So, I mean, I could keep on going on with more interdimensional
Well, those
spider people that
There's
might
also
be in it.
SPDR, which is another one that's in there. As we know.
Penny Parker, P-E-N-I. Okay, picture this if you don't know Penny Parker. So being Spider-Man or
SP-DR.
DR, yeah, like // Spider.
It's the robot, like the mech.
Yeah, but
Yes,
it's like
okay.
it's a calling. It's not only like it's a calling, like genetically, and then also technological wise. But not only that, Penny Parker, everybody in her school knows who she is. She's like an idol. Like in her culture, she's an idol and a firefighter, and it is a calling to have the spider accept you, and then to also be the spider. And then her baddies are people that are like super fans in the worst possible way, and just kind of want to meet her.
Oh no!
Yeah, it's pretty.
Penny Parker.
I like it.
Japanese American middle school student.
I'm gonna shout out a couple things that I should have loaded up graphics for. I don't remember what
You
I
might
called
have them. It got
but
very
there's
random.
3 or 4 matched covers in there for Spider-Verse, and these are a couple of special editions. This is if you're enjoying today and you want some more info, these are great places to start. Just last week, they should have shipped to comic book stores. They're still available for order. They're like $10 trade paperbacks, and they collect a lot of stuff that you might need. I'll just
they're
pull them up on
amazing.
here if they're turning out to be tough to find.
I did.
How do
You're
I
talking about the
full
Vault of
screen
Spiders?
this? Okay, so one of them looks like this. Spider-Man Spider-Verse, Miles Morales.
Oh, there you go.
And it's going to reprint like a few of his most important issues. We'll talk about why he has multiple starts and all of the stuff with Miles in a sec. But this is what that cover looks like.
That costume.
And then
It looks really
there's
great.
one of those for Spider-Gwen, who we will also talk about.
The best spider costume.
Okay, and also one
the
of the
best.
best hoodies that you can find.
Oh.
How about? So
Honestly,
good.
I think the costume, like just the costume design, is what like killed everybody when she came out in
It's
Edge of Spider-Verse
huge.
2.
It's why we
Right?
knew it would. We're not there
And
yet,
is
but
it-
it's exciting. Spider-Men, which is a number of the others, are collected in the trade paperback with this name. Just a bunch of the others that you
Is
might
that
meet.
noir?
No.
Like,
No,
with
no,
a
no,
weird
that
like.
was-
That's Ben.
Fearsome Foes.
Yeah. When Uncle Ben gets bit.
So look out for the covers that look like that, or ask your store about them. Okay, now we can
Now
go
we
from
need
there.
to talk about the original multiple Spider.
Well, I was just thinking, and I don't know why this came to mind. Ben Riley. Let's
You see,
start.
I feel like
Yeah, why is
Ben
Ben-
Riley,
Ben Riley?
is a very, arguably maybe the most important alternate Spider-Man, and that is a man with a hoodie all his own. Another amazing costume. Oh, this one? Why, yes. Now, Ben
is that
Riley.
a hoodie?
Now, Ben Riley is the best because, to me, Ben Riley started the concept of there being an identity crisis within Peter Parker. In the 70s, there was a clone of Spider-Man, and there was an amazing thing where they brought him back, and there was a conversation of,
I feel like you're moving a little bit too fast.
For those who don't know,
You have to pretend that our audience has never heard of Spider-Man and something. Like,
Peter
not that you
Parker-
haven't. I know that you have, but like, just
So in the
the information.
70s, Peter Parker was riding high on the John Romita Sr. arc of being a handsome college kid and doing well, whereas in the 60s he was the more squirrely, nebbish Steve Ditko art. So to complicate his life, they added a new Spider-Man, and that was because the Jackal had a love affair with Gwen Stacy, who becomes Spider-Gwen in the modern day, and basically clones her, but on the way to cloning her, accidentally clones Peter Parker,
but
and
they
then
didn't
realizes
have
he's-
like a relationship. He was obsessed with.
He was
her,
obsessed,
right?
yeah.
yeah,
So that's why
sorry.
he-
Did they actually have a love affair, or was it
he
just?
had a love affair with the clone, I think, but that was
Yikes.
Yeah.
Oh yeah. That's nice.
So the
Comics were problematic at one point.
there's some creepiness,
Very
but
Superboy.
that's what's interesting about the Clone Saga is that he cloned Gwen to have a Gwen of his own, accidentally found out that Spider-Man was Peter Parker because he cloned Peter Parker and was like, the boy's got powers.
Creepy, but also another very good title, A Gwen of His Own.
A Gwen of his own.
Jesus.
Yeah.
That's the Jackal's
we want to
album.
start talking about creepy Spider-Man,
That's
just
his
let me
vinyl.
know, because then we'll talk about Patton.
And
So
Spider-Man.
the original Ben Riley didn't really appear until when they brought the clone back, and there was this whole identity crisis of who's the real Spider-Man, and that alienated so many Spider-Man fans because they were
So
like,
now
the,
This is a storyline in the mid '90s.
I was about to say, you fast forwarded to the 90s now.
right, because the clone goes away, he buries him in a smokestack, he thinks he's dead.
Yeah, so like
Fast
this
forward.
this
The
whole
clones
clone,
won't stop.
the clone thing happens in the 70s for like 3 issues.
Yeah, it's a blip.
That's it, right? It's a blip. But then 20 years later, in like 95, they're like, you thought
By
it was
the
a blip.
way.
By the way, the last 20 years of Spider-Man comics hasn't been the real Peter Parker.
And that's why a lot of people hate the Clone Saga, because it alienates 20 years of mythology. I get all that, but I think the
But-
So
concept
it was a
is
big sprawling
fascinating.
crossover that was received in very different ways. There's some wonderful like behind the scenes tales of how editorial was functioning at that time.
Too many
and like
cooks.
last minute changes and trying to land all of the mysteries that they were putting out.
But it gave
and
us-
for some folks it is very fondly remembered.
And it gave us some great like one-offs, like the Lost Years of Ben Riley. It gave us Ben Riley himself. It gave us Kane. It gave us the idea
So spoil it for
that
people,
I think
like you just alluded to it, but what was the basic gist of that?
the basic gist is that when Ben Riley comes back, he's the one true Spider-Man, and these side Spider-Men are various deteriorating versions
And Ben
of the
Riley
clone.
is the name of the clone of Peter Parker.
Ben Riley is he's blonde because he doesn't want to look like Peter Parker. He
dyes
works
his
at
hair.
he dyes his hair. He works at a coffee shop. There's a whole conversation with him and Peter where they're sharing the mantle. So he becomes the Scarlet Spider.
But there's a period where he thinks he's Peter.
But it's very brief,
Mm-hmm.
very brief moment. But then there's like a will they, won't they, but with two dudes, like who's the Spider-Man? So
You're making it sound much more exciting than it was.
it's amazing.
So,
Do they hook up?
Often.
there's a fundamental thing that happens in comics where sometimes something terrible inevitably gives rise to some amazing stuff.
Yeah.
People take the parts of the things that didn't work and make them work.
And I think that the Clone Saga is responsible for the Spider-Verse, in my opinion.
Oh, I can't debate that. I have read the Clone Saga halfway through. It's the hardest thing for me to read sometimes. I've read it. I've read the beginning of it 3 or 4 times. I'm still fucking lost. And I know comics, and of all the comics I know, Marvel is the best that I know. I'm still lost. So that's why
cleared up.
9 out of 10 conversations I have with you, even off this show, I'm like, explain Clone Saga, please.
So in Spider-Man 75, drawn brilliantly by John Romita Jr., there's an amazing arc where the Norman Osborn has been controlling Spider-Man's life the whole time. So
Okay,
the death of
Spider-Man 75. This is in the 90s.
This is in the early 2000s, late 90s, somewhere.
Okay.
In there. So Spider-Man 75, when they relaunched Peter Parker Spider-Man into just Spider-Man, that run. So it's volume 2 of Peter Parker Spider-Man. So Spider-Man 75, Norman Osborn, we find out, has been pulling all the strings forever.
Okay.
He's the reason the miscarriage happened with Peter Parker's baby. He's the reason all these things have gone
There's
wrong.
so much, y'all.
Yeah,
so
there's
much.
so much.
Yeah, I mean, there's no way to actually tell it
comics
all.
are a hell of a
So
drag.
Ben Reilly is at this point in a Spider-Man suit, that awesome one that's like half and halves.
Yeah.
And he gets killed by sacrificing himself by jumping in front of the Goblin Glider, paralleling the Amazing
Spoilers, I guess.
from 20 years ago.
At
You don't
what
wanna read it. Just-
point?
it's
At
better
what
when Coy
point in the
tells it.
Clone Saga are we right now?
So we're at the end.
Yeah.
I'm explaining how it clears itself up.
Okay.
So he gets taken out. He dissolves into ash in Spider-Man's arms. So we find out Peter
Ben
Parker
Reilly
is
does.
Yes. Ben Reilly collapses.
He Thanoses.
He snaps.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So we find out Peter Parker is the one
Is that
true
a bird
Spider-Man.
now?
But recently, they brought Ben Reilly back. And that's why it's interesting, is because Ben Reilly, Kane, all these characters appear in Spider-Verse, which is why I thought it was important to bring it up.
So here's the thing
Yeah.
that I love is that one of the ways that comics are generational is that what Taliesin was alluding to of using the pieces of earlier stories, you really never know what's going to hit for somebody and what they're going to use later. So the 90s Clone Saga, I think that it's probably significant that like within 10 years of that, the internet gets invented and achieves popular use. So Clone Saga gets weirdly immortalized as the most famous terrible storyline of all time because it's the one that everybody in those early generations of discussions are like pointing at as the go-to, to the point where people forgot there even was a 70s Clone Saga. Like
That's true.
and so it both like it happened, it got really famous as a bad thing, and then it's had the next 5 to 10 years of people being like, yeah, but I liked Ben Reilly, or like, well, this is actually kind of interesting. So now it has its own like trade paperback reprint thing, and they're scavenging all the pieces that they like out of the story.
And something that a trend that I've noticed in comics now, like now that I've been like, I don't know, why am I prefacing? A trend that I've noticed in comics is that like all the stuff that we had in the 90s is now making a huge comeback now, and that's because the kids who were reading the comics are now writing the comics. So it is interesting to see like a Sleepwalker comic. Like,
Oh, man.
wait,
Yeah.
Sleepwalker? Ben Reilly's coming back. A couple years ago, they brought back X-Men Gold and X-Men Blue, and then they were like, also X-Men Red, sure. And it's like, oh, that was the Jim Lee 91. Okay, yeah. Like, but it's like, all this stuff is coming back, hence Spider-Verse is like, hey, remember Ben Reilly, remember Scarlet, remember like all this other stuff. The kids who read those are now writing them, and they love these toys, so they want to play with them now.
And it's
Yeah.
that beautiful sense that we keep telling the story to the next generation. Like,
I
But
love-
not only that, in different mediums, because there's also Spider-Man Shattered Dimensions. If y'all
Yeah.
remember that. Yeah,
Oh.
PlayStation 3, Nintendo DS, it has Spider-Man Noir, it has Spider-Man 2099, Our Spider-Man, and then, I forget the fourth one. But in any case, and I'm not going to spoil the gameplay for it. You're probably playing Spider-Man PS4 if you are playing any, and great choice, by the way, to play that one.
Good
but,
game.
But if you happen to have a PlayStation 3 or a Nintendo DS,
is it backwards compatible?
I don't
I never
know.
played
I don't
Shattered
know if it was
Dimensions.
popular enough for them to make a remastered version of it.
Start the movement.
There are some people that like really enjoyed it, and then others are like, "What is this hot mess?" But yeah, in it, Madam Web has to bring together. Yeah, Madam Web has to bring together like these 4 Spider-Men because there's this this tablet that's been separated into like 17 different fragments, kind of a thing, and they have to go to different realms to like then collect the tablets. Like Kraven the Hunter has one, for instance. That's like I think that's like in the first level. It's been a while since I played this, but yeah, they have that. And so yeah, I think that was like 2010.
And the animated series did it in the 90s. Multiple Spider-Man has always been a thing, and that's that's the reason I brought up the Clone Saga. 'Cause it was, I think, the first. In the 70s, that kind of started this thing, but in the 90s, the Spider-Man show, the finale had Stan Lee meeting multiple Spider-Men. Like, different universes Spider-Man come to play. That introduced us to the Armor Spider-Man. It brought us, like, different worlds of Spider-Man, multi-arm Spider-Man.
Kind of Marvel's Flash that way.
Yeah.
I was
Right.
just thinking that. Yep.
I see that.
like Earth 2,
Spider-Man
Earth
Two
3,
Worlds
Earth
is
4,
kind of-
yep.
Yeah.
You've got a lot of different
Yeah.
Spider-Men.
And Neil Patrick Harris is
Oh,
Peter
I mean,
Parker
like,
in it. So
You go wrong.
there's
That's
that.
amazing.
And the web spinners that flew out of Spider-Man had an identity crisis where he
Oh
ditched
my
the
God, the
Spider-Man
one-
suit,
no!
and he had 4 costumes.
No!
He was Dusk, Prodigy, Hornet, and Ricochet.
How do you
forgot that
remember
happened.
that?
It's a
forgot
weird.
that
My brain's
happened,
real weird.
yeah.
Prodigy was
I
the
don't
one that
what?
started me.
Wait,
Was that
what?
an imitation
So-
of the death of
Oh,
Superman?
God, oh,
4
God,
different
I-
replacement Batman Superman
So
thing?
basically,
kind of bouncing
Spider-Man
around.
gets sick of being Spider-Man right after the Clone Saga, like 5 years later, and he decides, Spider-Man no more, but I'm going to be these 4 heroes, and one of them is a symbiote light suit that is an alien suit that is Dusk. One of them bounces around a lot. He's Ricochet. He uses the agility. One of them is Prodigy. He's a Superman type. One of them's Hornet, which is very Spider-Man. He's literally a Hornet. And what's interesting is they use that to have multiple Spider-Men without the Clone Saga, because the Clone Saga had done well, which is a reflection of the time in comics when they're like multiples. And then he gave those suits to 4 different heroes. So the web spinners in the Spider-Verse actually isn't the first web spinners, which nobody remembers.
They went West Coast when,
Yeah.
when he gave them to other people. I do remember that.
And they were a team of web spinners, and then they brought that back in Spider-Verse.
I liked Prodigy. I don't know why.
I like Dusk. I like the black
I feel
suit.
that.
I was not expecting to come into this conversation today and leave confused.
Well, let's cover really quickly, and I think we can all do a little bit of this. I consider the beginning of like the flashpoint for that moment of the notion of like there really are a million Spider-Men and Spider-Women, and there's like an interconnected universe of them. Spider-Gwen was the moment where I really felt that was a thing, but there were a bunch of people before Spider-Gwen. I was trying to think of all the iterations before Spider-Gwen. Like Madam Web was definitely a big part of it.
Oh yeah.
Are you talking about just like the
Spider-Woman?
the sort of like mythos of Spider-Man,
mythos.
like
Yeah,
just
more
the characters important to the web?
Well, I mean, all the different iterations of Spider-Man that existed before people started like actually going, maybe this is a thing.
So yeah, there's a pivotal story that you're alluding to in 2014 called Spider-Verse.
Yes.
Where they basically take this already existing fact that there are a bunch of spider people, add a bunch more spider people, and make it into an on-purpose story thing.
So like,
Yeah.
and like they took the edge of the Spider-Verse, like there
That
was
was a
like,
series literally just designed to get you excited for Spider-Verse.
well, but like they
And
also
random bullshit one-shots that happen to change history, and that's my favorite thing about it.
No, and that's
It's so
amazing because
good.
like issue 2 is Spider-Gwen, and issue 3 was like a
Yeah.
weird.
issue
like-
1 was
So-
gosh. Issue 1 was Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah.
Yeah, the very first
And it
one.
was
Which had
like-
already
with-
been a 4-part series, right? At that
it's
time,
a
because the
six,
Noir.
it's a 6-part.
Yeah.
okay,
Oh,
thank
you
you.
mean
Spider-Man
But, like,
Noir had already
Spider-Man-
been out. Yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Man Noir.
Yeah, a
This
few
is
years
confusing.
ago.
So they tied Edge of Spider-Verse
Yeah.
into the mainstream title, and then it spun off into its own title. So Amazing Spider-Man was coming out, and they had Edge of Spider-Verse as a back-end 3-page, and then it spun out into its own thing. But right before that, they introduced us to Silk, who we haven't talked about yet.
yeah, Silk.
Silk comes out in Amazing Spider-Man number 4 in 2014, volume 3, when they keep rebranding Spider-Man. But Silk, it kind of alludes to the idea that there's these totems, there's this world of spiders and all that, and she's here, and then
And like
it's
across dimensions, there's a spider totem in every single dimension.
We're gonna get
So-
there.
And then there's-
He brought it up. I'm just like trying
Yeah.
to help.
And then letting
it
in
out.
the Spider God Anasazi.
I want to talk about how
It's a lot.
The
It's a
best
lot.
of comics can also be the worst of comics, and I love this as an example of that because crossover bloat is a huge problem in comics because people find it confusing. They find it hard to keep track of. They feel like they have to buy a million things, so the pricing gets out of hand. So it's very easy when you're looking at these where they're sort of like, we think this story's going to be exciting, greenlight like 55 one-shots to go with it, and it's easy to look at that and be like, this is a cash grab because you are literally trying to exploit the excitement in this moment to do that thing. And to a certain extent, from a business perspective, they're going to figure out how much the market will bear in terms of excitement, and they're going to try to meet that demand with interesting stuff. Now, what doesn't always happen but is really beautiful is that that specifically, them being like, we're going to do a giant crossover. It's called Spider-Verse. It's going to use all the spider people we can think of. We should make up some more. But we think we have enough of people's attention that before the story even starts, we're going to already start having stuff that's technically kind of part of the event. And we'll put the label Edge of Spider-Verse to mean this isn't part of that story, but it's leading to the story.
It's leading to
if
the
you're
story.
really
Get excited.
Grab this stuff. And so they put that on certain issues of Amazing Spider-Man,
On the
which is the
edge.
main
Yeah.
book. And they went, in addition to those,
I love it.
but it's not necessarily intuitive, even though the words they've chosen do mean that stuff. But it's so easy to get overwhelmed by this. And sorry, I was specifically a retailer selling all these issues, so I'm putting the hat back on.
Yeah.
And in addition to that, there was a well, we're gonna do this so. we'll do a series of one-shots that introduce brand new or reintroduce other Spider people in the lead up to this. And for most people who are just reading Amazing Spider-Man and trying to make their budget work, you don't want 5 random one-shots. But what you get out of doing stuff like that, in addition to people who can making that jump of investment to do that, is you get to try out interesting creative teams. You get to have Gerard Way come in and do one of your one-shots, who won't commit to doesn't have time to do a 10-part series for you, but
But
will
he can do a one-shot.
Didn't he do SBDR? Was that his?
It was in that edge of.
Yeah.
It was like number 3, I think.
That
God, I
sounds
love
like that would be him,
SBDR.
SBDR.
It's very him.
And then, so in that
Such a
sense,
great
like
pick.
number 2 of that, they introduce a random concept that we're going to talk about in a bit, which is like, what if Gwen Stacy? And it was just designed as that. So the best is also being the worst. Silk comes out of this issue, and it's very cool and very important, but the best is also the worst because this issue is an Original Sin tie-in, which is a completely unrelated giant crossover event. So this is...
And then
forgot
5
about
months
Original
later,
Sin.
the Spider-Verse starts, but they've already had
Spider-Verse.
3 Edge of. So 5 months later after that, we have this, and this is the first canon in regular Amazing Spider-Man Spider-Gwen. So we met her the week before in an Edge of title. This is her first mainstream title 5 months after Silk. So there's a lot going on.
And if I remember correctly, like the Marvel office was like, yeah, the Spider-Gwen thing, that sounds fun. And then they were like, oh my God, everyone loves Spider-Gwen?
It was
It was-
It makes
a-
sense.
it was
It makes so
huge.
much sense. I mean, even
Yeah.
just her outfit alone, yes, put a mask over that you can breathe through and that
Yeah.
you can easily see through, and then just put a hoodie on top of it and go about your business.
Can we
Yeah.
talk Spider-Gwen now? Is this how we come
You know
to...
what? There's never a bad time to talk about Spider-Gwen. Let's be fair. Let's go for it. Spider-Gwen.
But
Lead
let's
us
come
into this
back to
conversation,
the
Ann.
70s Japanese.
Oh, yeah.
We'll
Yes.
come back
Oh,
to
We're
Leopard.
coming back.
and-
We're going to jump around. Do
Yeah.
we have some Spider-Gwen imagery in the
We
box?
do.
Yeah.
So
I also want to talk
I
about
have the very
Spider
first-
Bee, also known as Spider Woman. Let's talk about her.
So that bottom panel here, it literally says your new favorite when you meet her. So they knew very
Well,
quickly.
the writers and I think maybe like the immediate editing team for Spider-Man probably was like, this is actually going to be pretty cool.
Well,
but I think Marvel as an organization was like, duh,
I
what?
can't confirm this, but I feel like that. I'm going to tell a story that may be false, but this is how I remember.
Okay.
Is that costume design had actually shown up on one of my, oh my God, I'm about to date myself, one of my old LiveJournal blogs that I used to enjoy, which was eventually a blog called Project Rooftop, which we've talked about on the show a few times. And I remember that Spider-Gwen design rolling through the feed of being like, check out this amazing Spider-Man redesign, like just beforehand, and like the hype was already there.
I remember it in terms of the design certainly was out there at the time they were prepping this book. I think was your sense that came out of like a fan work, or that it was just the first glimpse at this actual design?
Not quite fan work, but a pro who was just flexing.
So my impression is that this design is the work of the guys who did this one shot, which
Yeah.
is Jason Latour and Robbie Rodriguez, who set out to do a fun one shot and accidentally created like a legit star.
Yeah.
And
I love her story. That is the thing that really gets.
do we have time?
No, we're
Can we
doing
just
it.
real
We're
quick?
doing it.
Real
We're
quick.
in.
Yeah.
There is a file in, if we have graphics, that should say Spider-Gwen Origin 1, 2, and 3. If we could start with 1, that would be amazing. But if
See,
not, I have them here.
I should take note of that and just remember what
there
I
we go.
label things whenever I'm calling for images.
So right here we are.
Oh yeah, the Mary Janes.
Mary Jane.
So, man, I wish I could remember how the song goes, because somebody went, then later on, a girl band recorded this.
No,
And they pressed
that's
a vinyl for
amazing.
it,
There's
and
a
it's the
vinyl
thing
for
I
it.
want most in the world, and I don't have one.
Holy goodness.
There's a vinyl.
I didn't even
for
know
Mary
that was a
Jane's.
thing, but
Oh,
yeah, now I do.
It's a good cover too.
Whoever wants to attempt it, something like, face a tiger, this is your shot. Face a tiger, it's all you got. Face a tiger, this. And she stops.
All I hear is Eye of the Tiger.
No, wait, no, it's just not right. Someone-
what?
Oh, are we doing a dramatic reading?
We're dramatic reading this thing. Do you want to be Gwen?
Yes.
Okay. Then you're.
Who am I?
I forget her name. She's also in the band.
Come on, MJ. We need to move through this. Flash is going to kick us out any minute now.
You're gonna be her.
Ooh, Flash Thompson, dim shorty shorts.
I chose correctly. I got it. I have freaking got it. I am Mary Jane here for the purposes of this. Pick it up. Face it, tiger. Pick it up where we dropped it.
Onto the next page.
On the next page, which is dun dun dun. Face a tiger. You hit the jackpot, which we'll explain afterwards is a big deal.
I was just like, yeah, wait, have we explained that yet?
And we are immediately in the 2-page spread, the previously in Spider-Man.
What this, oh, how, do we cuss here?
Yeah.
Oh yeah.
What the shit just bit me?
Tal, can you do some incidental voices for the next?
Give a big welcome to this one, the only Spider-Woman.
I guess also detective.
All
Yeah,
the things
just-
that girl could do, and she chooses that.
Touch him again and you won't like how I touch you.
She saves Peter Parker from bullies.
Yeah. Oh.
Har har! Even Stacy's more man than you are, Parker. Pathetic Parker. I'll send them who's pathetic. Show them all. I just wanted to be special like you.
Oh.
Such blatant disregard for human life cannot be tolerated. Peter Parker must not have died in vain. Spider-Woman and those like her must learn that they are great with great power. Something else. Comes even greater responsibility. Yeah.
So Jonah says
And
that
we're
I
back in the drumming scene. Yo, Stacy! Yo, Def Leppard!
Where,
Jay-Z's Louise.
Jay-Z's Louise, carried away much?
Sorry, I don't know what came over me.
Whatever ugliness is clawing at the wall. Oh. Want to talk about it?
Talk about what?
Next time I'll bring 2 iPads.
Whatever ugliness is clawing at the walls of that putty whittle head. Purdy whittle head, sorry. Because lately you're either offbeat or off planet. This is a big gig for us, Gwen. You need to tell us what's going on. We need to be able to trust each other.
Oh, Glory. Glory's her name.
Glory, I can't. I just can't, okay?
Told ya. Total head case.
Leave her alone, MJ. Gwen will be fine.
And the next page is just, she's got a lot on her mind. And you see Gwen out there as Spider-Gwen. Thank you.
Gwen.
Yay!
Thank you.
That's the origins of
Okay, so
Yeah. What
I love
MJ and Face It, you hit the jackpot tiger. Who wants to
Okay.
cover that real quick?
There's so much. It's the first 3 pages. First, I'll just say, like, you're not confused. There is no previously in Spider-Woman. That's what I love about, like, this opening here, where they're just like, we only have a one-shot. Who knows if Gwen will get to do anything after this story? Pack
get it.
everything you can in right now.
And
And
they
they give her this whole life in those 3 pages.
And they use the conventions of the medium of like, the readers are familiar with flashbacks and previously ons. So even though these stories have never come before, the reader will understand this is what's come before if we say previously on and then give them frames.
And they
describing it.
remix familiar elements to do it.
Of the Spider-Man
Tell
mythology.
me that you don't fill in the blanks with that. That you don't totally see
Yeah.
where Gwen gets bitten by the spider and then all of a sudden there's, Spider-Gwen
Well,
out and about. But that she's just cool and awesome in her own self.
And that's
And
one
then
of-
Peter,
and
of
that's-
course.
That's one of the things that McCloud talks about in his How to Read a Comic Book, where like the line between the frame is there for the audience to supply what happens between. Closure, yeah.
You see this pathetic Peter Parker
Yeah.
just like
Becomes the lizard.
mixing around and he becomes the lizard.
Yep.
Of course he does.
does, yeah.
And then of course he, runs ramshackle through, New York City. And yeah, of course it's not right. And of course he dies, and that's a tragic backstory for Gwen.
For Gwen.
And that's one of the most fun things about the Spider-Verse is you get the opportunity to remix. And like the Face of Tigers Hit the Jackpot is one of my favorite remixes because the Mary Janes is a band in this case. And Mary Jane famously in issue 42 of Amazing Spider-Man back
There
in
it is.
1964
Yep.
says Face of Tigers Hit the Jackpot when she is appearing for the very first time.
She's been hinted at for a couple of months, but she's the girl next door, and he expects her to be like frumpy because he's being set up with her. Does
So-
nobody's
By
aunt
Aunt
set
May.
you up with a
There's
supermodel?
aunts. Aunts are setting people up.
Aunt May's best friend is the aunt of Mary Jane and their neighbors, and Anna Watson has been trying to get them to meet for months.
You're gonna love my niece.
So for 6 months, we haven't seen Mary Jane's face. It's been obscured. It's been in the dark. There's been all this lead up, and then when he meets her, it's Peter Parker. Like I've been ignoring her, and then she says, "Face the tiger, he's hit the jackpot" in a black shirt with a thing over her jacket. And
Which
it's
is a
just
thing you can
Red-haired,
say if
yeah.
you are Mary Jane Watson.
and it's iconic, and they use it all the time in modern comics. Tiger is now like very much canon, so to have that as the theme song for the Mary Janes shows them like we pay attention, and it gives us a great origin story that ties into Spider-Man's origin story, and all of these Spider-Verse elements get to play with that mythology in a way that isn't necessarily canon, but then can be canon. They can retroactively be like, oh, that's a different universe. Circle that, keep that, and that's so much fun for a studio.
Guys, talk about a creepy Peter
Yes.
Parker.
Oh, man.
I mean, since we just did that one, we like, why not do the one? You can see it in Edge of the Spider-Verse. I think it's like number 4. It's either number 3 or number 4.
yeah.
I think.
looking
I
at it.
forget the name of the title of it,
Oh, I
but
have it, I have it.
the
Keep going.
the Peter Parker that they have in there, I think it's Patton Parnell, and he has an Uncle Ted who he lives with. He is such a creepy. I can't call him Peter Patton. He is so freaking creepy. Like at the beginning, you think that there's an experiment that they're doing on ants, like an exoskeleton, like, oh, it's like a scientific thing. No, he's burning ants with a magnifying glass, narrating to himself that it's a scientific experiment. He goes into his room and he's peeking at Sarah Jane next door, like with binoculars and
Yeah,
sweat.
creepy kid, yeah.
Very, very creepy kid. And he's being abused by Uncle Ted. He gets bitten by the spider and he becomes, he's not the kind that you want to have great
He actually
power.
becomes
The
a
wrong
spider,
person,
right?
yeah.
He when he spiders out, which is
Yeah.
different. Like he looks normal and then he like
Kind of like a
It's
bear
very
spider.
Reanimator, actually. The vibe I got
Yeah.
from the we were
Yeah, it's like, he's like a were spider.
He's eating like rats and
Yeah.
other people's pets. He catches people, like invites them over, and then like spins
It was
a web.
really fucked up. Like,
He's grabbed Uncle Ted and he's like, what's a good way to impregnated him
It's
with
creepy.
spiders?
Yikes.
Yeah.
yeah, it was a weird, like,
It
And
was.
Spider-Verse 4.
yeah,
You-
especially like following like SPDR and Gwen Stacy. You got to that issue and you're just like,
You were so happy
okay.
to see Moreland.
Yeah.
Because you're like, kill it. Kill it.
Kill
Figure
it,
it out,
please.
please. Just
Please
remove
kill
it.
it.
Kill it, please.
Yeah.
What's a Moreland?
Oh, boy.
So
You took it
can I
from-
cover Moreland?
No, we're going. Are we going there?
We got to launch.
J. Michael Straczynski
Yeah,
wrote.
we haven't launched yet, by the way.
J. Michael Straczynski wrote an incredible first 3 arcs. It fell apart after that.
He wrote a lot of Spider-Man. You got to say what you're talking about.
He wrote a lot of Spider-Man. Now,
Man wrote a lot of Spider-Man.
he then fell apart with One More Day and a lot of things that a lot of people don't like. But if you read the first 3 arcs,
God,
issue.
that was him?
Yeah, we don't
That's
talk
the one he
about
took
it.
his name off.
So J. Michael Straczynski wrote, it was issue 30. Now, this is Peter Parker in college as a professor. He's
Don't get
teaching.
confused by these numbers. They keep renumbering them. I'm very sorry. This is
Yeah.
the late 90s Spider-Man written by J. Michael Straczynski.
If you are
Amazing
confused right
Spider-Man.
now, so are we, and that's okay.
And there will be a poor article coming out in a couple days that will list every.
Kelly Knox.
Kelly Knox!
It's Amazing Spider-Man
yay,
Volume 2, number 30. So if that helps you find which number 30.
Volume 2 means we started the numbers over again.
So it's the first time they renumber in the 2000s. So it's number 30, and J. Michael Straczynski
Oh, man.
writes this character Moreland. Now, at first he looks like a poor man's Morbius, and we all thought he was.
Morbius is a living vampire. He's another Marvel character. Looks like a vampire.
Yeah, he looks
Yeah.
looks like an interview with a vampire extra.
He's a very Anne Ricey looking character.
Yeah.
And so Moreland is this all-powerful deity that keeps referencing spider totems and all these things that'll come to be important now. Now, we don't know what he's talking about in these issues because this is the introduction, but we meet this character Ezekiel. Now, Ezekiel is this older gentleman who can crawl on walls, who becomes a mentor to Peter. And now, keep in mind, Peter is in his 30s. He's a college professor, but we see him retroactively rewrite all of Spider-Man mythology. Ezekiel describes Madame Web as a keeper of the spider totem. He talks about Anya Corazon, who's a spider woman from another universe. He talks about May Parker, who is an alternate reality daughter of Spider-Man who inherits his powers.
She had her own book as Spider-Girl. It's one of the longest running
Side-offs.
female-led like titles in comics, I think. She had a solid like 100, 150 issues.
Is that Mayday?
Ridiculous.
Mayday Parker.
Mayday Parker, yeah.
And Mayday
Yeah.
Parker is also in the Spider-Verse. Now, so this character basically rewrites the mythology, and that's what's fun about the Straczynski run is he plays with mythology while building his own. So Moreland's introduced, and he kicks the crap out of Spider-Man. He handles Spider-Man. He basically kills Spider-Man until Ezekiel in a series of events can save him. So we introduce Moreland as something that's stronger than Venom, stronger than all these things that can basically handle Peter Parker. And then when they bring Moreland back, it's part of a family. There's an entire group of Morelands. He's the baby brother, and the inheritors all consume spiders. So the inheritors consume the spiders from all the multiverses, but he's introduced as far back as I want to say that was like 05.
Oh yeah.
So they're like hyper-specific vampires.
Yes.
They're
Yeah.
interdimensional vampires that eat people who are touched by a spider goddess.
Yeah,
Yep.
the Anansi,
very
the spider
specific,
goddess.
yeah.
And they started all off, or maybe not started all off, but was it a universe 000 or like Earth
think
000?
so, yeah.
They confront the Master Weaver. I'm just
Oh, no.
hearing
Why not,
myself,
man?
and
Yeah.
it's just like, okay.
Yeah.
And the Master Weaver is just like, picture a giant spider person that's also kind of like mech steampunkish and holds fate and destiny by a snap or a spin of a web.
Sure.
And that's the Master Weaver. And then the family of vampires, the inheritors, are going after, like, because this is the top prize. Talk about, that spider essence that they've been looking for.
And this planet has multiples because of Ben Reilly and Cain and all those things. So they also introduced this concept of the
Who's
other.
Kane?
So Cain
Wow,
is
it's the
a
saddest. Who's
clone
Cain?
saga. So this is why you had to start with Clone Saga. Cain is a
I
Clone
love
Saga
you.
entity
Who's
that was
Cain?
degenerating. So Ben Reilly is at least mostly formed. Cain is a stronger character than Spider-Man, but he's falling apart, and basically his face has got a rot to it because he's a degenerating clone. But whenever he marks you, you get the mark of Cain, and he consumes some of your essence, and you get the mark of Cain.
Very off-Broadway Phantom of the Opera.
Yeah.
He's a very yes.
Not to be confused with Cain the wrestler, who's
No.
a demon.
Or Kane Marco?
There's a lot of Kane.
There's a lot of Canes. So Cain is a
Marco
character that's very
is-
important in modern comics and was introduced in the Clone Saga and has more strength than Spider-Man, but because he is a clone of the spider essence, he becomes the other. So he's a special type of food for these inheritors. He's like a sought-after dessert because he won't sustain them, but he's delicious. So that becomes a key entity for the Earth 616, which is the mainstream Marvel Universe's Spider-Man.
So
And
he's
not to
a
be-
snack.
He's a snack. He's
Not
like,
to be confused
he's like a Milano
with
cookie.
Karn,
Snack.
who is part of the Inheritors and is the one that sent the mask for. Well, he betrays them. He's the youngest. I think he's the youngest brother, Karn.
I love that mask.
Yeah. Okay. So when this is in Spider-Verse. Okay.
Oh, man.
So
2014 story that we keep coming back to.
yeah, which is the whole thing is about this. Okay, so with Karn, his family of inheritors is like Karn, it's Brix, Bora, the mother. I don't know the mother's name, but it's never good to
The
be
mother
a mother
doesn't
in
know her
comics.
name.
Yeah, and then one other. They go after Master Weaver. It's not a good time. A good time doesn't happen. Mother gets like vaporized with a snap of a web, and Karn has a shot at the Master Weaver, and then is like, oh, I am trying to. Master Weaver gets into Karn's head. It's like, no, you are one that tries to build something, not to destroy it, that kind of a thing. And Karn's like, you're right, I am. What am I doing? And then his mother gets vaporized. Like, oh crap. So, yeah. So they capture Master Weaver because they have the whole family of them. But then Karn's like black sheep of the inheritor family. And this is the thing that I was talking about earlier where, okay, it's coming back around. Okay, so Karn, they then take some of Master Weaver's steampunk mecha-nish and fashion a mask of shame for him, which just looks like an old era.
diving-
It looks like a real cool diving mask.
so cool.
Like real cool, but it was like part of the Master Weaver's butt, so there's that. So he has that on now, and then he goes through dimensions with this huge like pitchfork. It's a like electric pitchfork, and he's killing Spider-Man with it, which sets off the events of Spider-Verse. But the thing of it is, for Karn's origin, is that he's like trapped, like Quantum Leap, going through different dimensions, killing Spider-Man, hoping that the next
Next
Spider-Man that he kills will be enough for his family to let him go home. So the most tragic Quantum Leap ever.
I just want to go home.
He's
Not until
killing-
that spider's dead.
And the next one. And the next one. And the next one.
So
It's an infinite Spider-Verse.
So it's
used to it.
important to point out what the
Yeah.
it's important to mention what the point of all this is, which is this
to
is
sell comics.
this is well, I mean, beyond
The best is the worst
there's
is
no
the best.
illusions. Is that the point of all this is because this is just an excuse to action figure everything up and be like, I want 9 spider people together talking to each other, being ridiculous, and I want to make weird spider people that just do weird stuff. And they go, this is all that this is really about, is how many weird spider people can you make?
It is certainly a thing that they like. There's always the like, when you look at a piece of art and you're sort of like, here's its official purpose, and here's the thing that makes it stand out because they were having so much dang fun with this element of it. And certainly Spider-Verse, like that was, you can feel the energy in all of those, like, oh, we can just pitch any kind of whatever, what if spider? Oh, what about this one and this one and that? And
It's
like
5
the
pages,
energy
and
is
if one
so
works,
powerful.
Yeah.
An electric gremlin, a smart gremlin.
Get Spider-Ham.
no, it-
Spider Monkey.
Oh my
So
God,
you
it is
talk
so
about
like the
Spider-Ham.
demons. Yeah.
Spider-Ham and
Yes.
Spider
Peter
Monkey.
Porker.
We need a
He's
moment.
been around for a
Peter
lot longer
Porker.
than any of
That's
us.
exactly what you. So a lot of what's fun about Spider-Verse is that it drew on stuff that already existed and had accumulated over the decades.
I have a picture here of Spider-Ham
yes,
and Spider Monkey
yes.
once we flip.
I think maybe over
wait,
here
wait.
is the place.
There we
Yeah.
go.
Oh, there we
There
go.
it-
Oh God.
Okay, do you see them?
I love Olivia Copiel.
There's
How do you
Spider
say that?
Monkey and Spider-Ham.
Quapel?
So-
I'm
Beautiful.
gonna get
Quople,
this.
yeah, beautiful
angle.
art.
You can read it.
You know, there's
Dang
no
it.
way to get it to read it, but I can read it if you like.
Okay. See, look at that picture. Okay, now words.
Oh, on me, people were moving out, and then Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Man, says, "Yes, sir, Spider, sir."
Okay, who's Peter Porker, the spectacular Spider-Ham? Because he's the best.
The punniest Spider-Man of all.
80s?
It was in the 80s, 70s and 80s, I believe. It did
Okay.
start in the-
Probably late 70s. I didn't
but
look
it was
this up.
it was a backup story to make like a kind of a kid-friendly, jokey.
Well, did it start in
There's
the
a
What If,
whole
I wanna
universe
say?
where they're animals. It's great.
Yeah,
And
not to be confused with Marvel Apes, which is where Spider Monkey comes from. Picture everything that you know about like Spider-Man, but all of it's simian. Like there's the Ape Vengers. The United
so good.
States of Simian.
I'm trying to find Peter Porker.
Okay.
So many
Found
things.
it. Maynard
Was there a
Spider-Man.
symbiote? 'Cause
Tom
that's a wasted
DeFalco and
opportunity.
Mark
Oh no,
Armstrong.
there's a Venom. There's
Symbiote.
Get out.
You just get out of him.
Yeah, I gotta get out
It's
it.
Marvel
And we're
movie.
back.
Aw.
Symbiote.
Oh
So
man.
it's November 1983. It's Marvel Tales, T-A-I-L-S. There's a classic Marvel Tales
There
book,
you go.
which is, by the way, coming back.
It's all animals. Do you want some of the animals?
Yes.
that
They're
appear in
amazing.
this-
Oh,
this
sure.
episode?
They're so good.
Deer Devil, Goose Rider,
Oh
no.
my God.
the Fantastic Fur. Let's see. It's
They just dropped the O.
I also see yeah. There's a submarsupial, which is possibly a wombat.
Oh, summer.
Dr. Doom.
Asinine torch. There's a whole bunch of them apparently.
What did you? What torch?
Asinine?
Donkey. It's a donkey. Asinine torch.
Oh my gosh.
Oh my God.
Iron Mouse was one of my favorites.
King Pig.
Of course.
Galactopus.
Oh.
Galactopus.
Is he a-
Hulk, Hulk
Does it
Spider-
look like Cthulhu?
He's a platypus who eats planets,
Oh
Matt.
no, I was thinking octopus.
Doctor Doom.
Dr. Doom.
Nick Fury, Agent of Sheep.
Nick Fury,
Oh.
Agent of Sheep.
Oh, Fury, sorry, memory.
Furry.
I failed the sheep clan.
Dodo
Gosh.
Dugan?
Bullfrog. Yeah, Buzzard. There's so many. Hogzilla. I mean, like, it just.
Hogzilla.
I'm trying to remember the Captain America rabbit's name. It's just killing me.
Oh,
Captain America, Hair
find
America?
on this page.
Air America?
Something very cheesy.
It's so cheesy. And, like, these are deeply cheesy Looney Tunes-esque characters.
Yeah.
So what I recommend for viewers, if you like the cheesy, go with Peter Porker. If you like the action figure stuff, go with Spider-Verse. If you want to make it like a thesis statement on mythology, go with Straczynski. Straczynski's run is like the beginning of when all this started to take form into what it is today. Dan Slott wrote Spider-Verse, but Straczynski was the beginning of this wave of an option. And Straczynski is one of the best writers Spider-Man's ever had.
Oh, wait.
But it's a lot more thesis ecology.
Yeah.
Yeah,
There it
here we
is.
go. Here we
You got
go.
it?
There you go. You're welcome. You're welcome, Internet.
Beautiful.
Yay.
There's a cat. Oh, it's cat.
Captain
Captain
America?
America. Yeah.
Captain America.
Captain
Of course.
America.
Hulk Bunny.
Yeah. Hulk
Oh
Bunny.
The
man.
spectacular Spider-Ham.
Captain America Cat. I'm so sorry. Captain America.
Americat. Yes.
Wow.
That
I
is
can't get over
beautiful.
Goose Rider.
Goose Rider is kind of the best.
It's right there,
That's
guys.
kind of awesome.
Bless you.
Jeez.
Tom DeFalco's the
Oh,
same writer who
wow.
would then write a ton of those Spider-Girl issues when she had her own book.
And I think something to
Thank
keep
you,
in
Tom DeFalco.
mind, like with this, like the recruitment of spiders is supposed to be going up against the inheritors. So all of these spider people that you see were considered the best of the best to help in the fight.
Peter
So
Porker is one of the best.
there you go.
Peter Porker, one of the
and
best.
Spider Monkey, they're there.
Worth
Yeah,
noting-
Ashley Barton and so on and so forth.
He's in the movie
I
too.
like
It's
it.
worth noting. Peter Porker,
Peter
Spider-Ham
Porker's in the movie.
is John Mulaney. John
So,
Mulaney
there
is
you
playing.
go.
Yes.
Are you
Oh,
serious?
yeah.
Yes,
Oh,
John
yeah.
Mulaney.
John Mulaney's Peter Porker.
Spider-Ham.
They had plushies at New York. It was great.
Did they really?
Oh, that
Oh, yeah.
is
See
good.
them.
I-
Oh, I
yeah.
missed
Well,
out.
Peter Porker ends up being, and like there's, I will say for another one that I'm a fan of is in 1978 they licensed the rights to Spider-Man to the Japanese Sentai.
This
Yes.
But I can.
This was when I was reading Spider-Verse. This was one of those like you read comics and you like get excited about comics, but very rarely does my entire body react to something that I read. Like it's usually a mental like, oh, that's awesome. Oh, I love that. This Japanese Spider-Man showing up in Spider-Verse.
There's 3 Japanese Spider-Men.
Like
Yeah.
4 Japanese Spider-Men.
the giant mech when that showed up.
One has
When this showed up in the comics, I was reading the comic
Spider-Man!
and I was like, here's
Leopardon.
exactly what I did. I'm reading. I'm going, yes, do it.
Okay, tell us about it.
Do it. They did it, yes! Yes! Like, I dropped the comic and like, they did it! Like, it was a full body reaction to that comic.
They're doing this again to people, by the way, because the game Spidey from PS4 just is showing up in the current version of Spider-Verse. There's a story happening right now called Spider-Geddon.
Yep.
Oh yeah.
We're not going to
Spider-Geddon.
go into
And
it
Yuri
until-
Spider-Man is in it.
Yeah,
Yep.
the game version. But tell us about Japanese Spider-Man.
Japanese
Yes.
Spider-Man in the
Leopardon.
1970s. He was gifted powers by a spider god, which is actually weirdly ties in. And then he has this little tech bracelet that he hits a button and the costume comes out and like lays on him, like the costume like pancakes him, and then it cuts to
So
a
kind of like
zipper.
Flash.
Like literally, there's
Ever's
a
range. Yeah.
yeah, except every time there's the zipper, zzz, and then he's,
then
in
he's
it.
like-
He's got the web shooters, and then he's got like a spider car. He has a if I recall, there's a sidekick with a cowboy hat and a guitar for a while.
Awesome.
That shoots things. And then he has a flying ship called like the Marvel that then turns into Leopardon, which is half spider, half leopard, all robot.
And has
Do you have a
like
picture of that?
web greaves.
I
Yeah,
mean,
that's
like-
the same one.
like-
Oh, that's the
Do you
Leopardon.
see those
That's
web
the-
greaves though? I
Yeah,
can't
it's
get over
all
that.
about
Web greaves?
The
greaves
web
are amazing.
greaves.
It's just such a
The
good
show
phrase.
is really, even as
It's
a Sentai
bonkers.
fan, the show is really, and I love
What's a
Sentai. Sentai is a form of Japanese. It's a I want to say form of Japanese. It's not. It's a trope in Japanese storytelling that's been around forever, which is it's kids shows that tend to be. I can do this. Five youths from all wakes of life putting on color-coordinated spandex and fighting giant monsters with robots.
Voltron!
Basically 3, 5, 7. Yeah, it's Voltron. It's
Power Rangers.
Power Rangers.
Sailor Moon to a certain extent.
Sailor Moon, Saint
a certain
Seiya.
extent.
I mean, like they've been doing it since like the originals are in black and white. This is never ending. 1, 3, 5, 7, and there's usually not always a giant robot, and then the robots usually combine. But like there's been literally hundreds of iterations of this, and one of them was fucking Spider-Man.
I like how this episode, Amy is the click link version of like, what's a blah, blah, blah? And then we just can explain the
you want
thing.
to know more?
She's a blue highlight.
It's me doing here on the show what I do in real life,
Yeah,
which
she's
is
our
click on those
hypertext.
links.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, she's our hypertext link.
What's a cane? What's a leopardon? What's a...
This is, and I mean, like it's our.
So I don't think that we've gotten into where like the actual inciting incident of the Spider-Verse and Otto Octavius's part in it,
Superior
like
Spider-Man.
the superior Spider-Man. Like we haven't touched any of that yet. Should we?
I
I feel like that's
I don't think
important.
people
I don't think they're doing that with
They're not in the movie.
Spider-Verse. It's not in the movie.
Not in the movie,
I mean,
but it
like, in
is the comics.
I
Yeah.
almost think it's almost more interesting just to talk about. I mean, like this is one of those stories where like the story itself is not the story of what's interesting with this.
But all of these different spider people are like
On the other hand, yeah, bring one.
Dr. Aaron Achman.
Who's Dr. Aaron Ockman?
Bring one.
He's one of the Japanese Spider-Man, but he's called the Spider-Man, and he is a molecular biologist, and he's part of, I want to say Ikigami, like an Ikigami medical facility, and his boss is Kaori Ikigami. And her whole thing is that her daughter Hannah gets hit by a car, has irreversible brain damage, and she's trying to cure that. But she's been trying to cure that for like the past 7 years. And then he's part of the study to do that. So there's like neural-brain interface kind of a thing. But he does, medical experiments on himself. And that happens with like him becoming the Spider-Man. So I feel like he's got like a kind of arrogance to him, which is actually very attractive in this particular version of Dr. Aaron Achman, the Spider-Man. And like one of the first ones that he goes up against is, I think his name is Rick Landris, and he's called Red Eye. He was an astronaut, and he goes to the first manned mission to Jupiter. I think that this particular story should be like its own sci-fi movie because it's already something that we have, and then it's like Sony should like jump on this, so they need to do that.
Get on it, Sony. You need to make a bunch of movies that don't have Spider-Man in them. Go.
Yeah. Okay, so first manned mission to Jupiter, things go wrong. He gets like bombarded with like cosmic rays. He comes back and he becomes Red Eye, where he's like this giant thing. I think they call him the Jovian Annihilator or something like that. Yeah. And that's like the first person that the Spider-Man has to take down. And like with him, he has, it's not only the spider powers, like he makes like this silk solution that comes like, when you see his outfit, he's got like these big hands.
Like Popeye?
Yeah, that and his feet, because all of this is technology, because he has like these limitless resources with Ikigami Medical Center. So he does that along with his brain power. And it's just like, wow, Peter wishes that he could do all of this stuff. And then he's got like this messed up relationship with Kaori. And then it turns out that, you know,
Where is
Hannah's
the story told?
I believe this is Japan. I believe it is. I don't remember if it was like specifically anywhere in it where it's like New Tokyo or something like that.
Does this happen in a part of Spider-Verse that I'm just not remembering well or possibly didn't read?
There are some
Possibly.
corners.
Yeah, I don't
Okay.
remember this guy.
I'm just,
Possibly.
what book do we have?
It's really,
I'm not looking for it.
I don't remember. I read
so deep.
thematically.
Yeah.
So actually knowing issues, I was very proud of myself earlier on when I knew the issue number of something.
We should talk
Not a
about
quiz, no worries.
a character that will appear, and we haven't talked about yet, and he's sitting on the desk. Miles
I was
Tiberius
just thinking
Morales.
That. I was just thinking,
Yes.
we haven't touched Miles yet.
Now,
It's time to talk about Miles.
I mean, I feel like his middle name isn't Tiberius, by the way, but I think it is. Now, Miles Morales, I think we need to at least touch on as we dive
Who
into.
wants to start with what's the Ultimate Universe?
I'll start with what's the Ultimate Universe. Long, long time ago.
2001.
2001. Spider-Man the movie is coming out suddenly, and Marvel's trying to get clever with the fact that they now realize that these movies might bring people to the comic books if people who like enjoy the X-Men movie didn't go into a comic book store and say, "I'd like to read some X-Men," and they're like, "Well, the current issue is 236," and we're like, that's
Also, we just lived through the 90s. The business went boom and bust a couple of times. Everybody's trying everything. The Clone Saga is in recent memory, and people are like, it's a lot, y'all.
It was a traumatic 10 years
So-
for the industry.
Marvel had this really fun idea of like basically doing a reboot universe of like, if you want to just hop in, here's something you can start at one. It's going to be really accessible. It's going to be a modern take, but like a clean, fun, modern take on the original stories and kind of building these.
In a completely separate universe, so like
Totally
you don't have to worry about canon.
There's
like
Spider-Man 1, Ultimate Spider-Man 1, Ultimate X-Men 1,
the Ultimates, #1.
Which was Avengers.
Which
Which
were
was
the
a strong influence on the Avengers, but that's a separate story.
But so they Ultimate Spider-Man was a really good book. It
Breakout
was a
hit.
lot
Took
of
everybody by surprise.
Brian Michael Bendis,
Brian
Mark
Michael
Bagley,
Bendis, yep.
longest creative duo in the history of comics.
They took the Lee Kirby record.
And they wrote the hell out of this book. But the thing that happened at the end of the thing that happened in this book, there came a point where they realized that it was maybe the best Spider-Man story never told was the death of Peter Parker.
And side note, by this time, like they've done 150, 160 issues
many
of Spider-Man, and
Yeah,
they've
they've been doing
established
it
some
for
things
years.
about Ultimate, which is that in the Ultimate universe, if you die, you stay dead.
Yeah.
Because they don't have as much history to deal with. So, like in general,
stakes.
you know, they've developed that. So,
So they decide it's time to kill Peter Parker, and while it is a bit of a convoluted mess, good timing. While it is a bit of a convoluted mess killing Peter Parker, I will say the actual issues, if you like get down to the nitty gritty of it, especially in the Spider-Man book, because they made a big crossover of it, it's a beautiful ending for this character. Peter Parker.
I didn't even read that book, and I cried reading it.
Oh,
I read it in the
yeah.
store.
Peter Parker goes out. Peter Parker goes out. He spends an entire day basically saving everybody's goddamn. Peter Parker saves everybody's life. He takes a bullet for Captain America. He gets the shit kicked out of him by a bunch of he's just the Sinister Six are doing stuff, and he finally ends up home, and the Green Goblin is about to kill Aunt May and Gwen Stacy
Because they found out that
They
Peter
figured out
Parker
who
is
he was.
Spider-Man. Yeah.
And he is no mask. He's been shot. He's bleeding. He's a mess, and he dies in front of a crowd, basically saving everyone he loves and basically doing the I'm
Successfully
I'm
saving
saving
everyone.
everybody today, and then drops dead finally at the end of it. And there's somebody who witnesses this, who there's a kid in here who witnesses this and has this very profound effect on this kid named Miles. And Miles eventually he sees this happen and kind of freaks him out, and then he a couple weeks later goes
So
to.
They kind of jump into his story and they reveal that there's some things we didn't see that happened before that.
Yeah, I'm giving
that
you a little
came at an important turning point for him.
One of the things is, and we'll get into, is that Miles also has superpowers, but he's kind of decided to ignore them.
He's 13.
He's 13.
For the
Yeah,
record.
so
He's got a
it's
lot
just-
going on.
You know, that's a very hectic time in
Yeah.
anybody's life.
Yeah.
And if I remember correctly, like this was at a point where like S.H.I.E.L.D. and the Ultimates in this universe were trying to work with Peter Parker to teach him how to be a better Spider-Man, and like
That was the whole, yeah, I mean, like,
that was a whole other thing. But like he was supposed to be off like helping the Ultimates, but this whole other thing was going on, and there was this other crossover
he was supposed to be
going
not
on.
involved. He actually was supposed to be, he'd been told to end it. He'd been told to stop. But
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
Peter had been
knock it
told to
off.
stop being
Yeah,
Spidey?
it's like, this is no good. Nick Fury was like, no.
What are you doing?
And
Ultimate Spider-Man.
and then, so this poor kid, Miles, and actually, he's like so affected by this, he ends up going to the funeral, the public funeral of Peter Parker, who's now this, it's this huge deal. And he kind of out loud at some point during, like, as the crowd is going by, just says, why? And Gwen kind of snaps and just stops and talks to him. And like,
In
Gwen,
Ultimate, she's alive,
Yeah.
by the way.
Yeah.
And Carnage.
oh yeah, that's true.
Well,
Don't get weird.
Yeah.
And
she stops.
she stops and she kind of paints this portrait of this person who's so selfless and so loving, and he can't let it go anymore. And he just decides that he kind of takes the guilt for not step this 13-year-old kid.
Yeah.
He's a different Spider-Man. He's and I love, man. Okay, so
A
this,
lot of people love Miles.
Oh,
This
yeah.
this was the year 2011, I want to say.
Sounds about right.
And
Yeah.
so the Ultimate Spider-Man book had gone through 150 issues, a brief renumbering, so that took it to about 160 or something like that. The way that comics work. And then they had announced that there was going to be a new Ultimate Spider-Man book. And this was one of those, like, I will always remember this because there were, like, wildly mixed feelings
Yes.
from a lot of corners of the world.
Like, what?
Some of it perfectly normal, like, people are gonna be sad when a character dies, and that
Sure,
is a
that was
normal
very sad.
human emotion to have. There's other folks who objected to the idea of Spider-Man as a legacy character. What we call a legacy character is usually like, if you can expect that someone else will pick your shield up when you fall, you're a legacy character. If anybody can get a Green Lantern ring, you're a legacy character.
Yeah, like
But
Captain Marvel is a legacy character.
Yeah.
Absolutely.
if you kind
Not a
of come
career bell.
Yeah. They're finally doing a trade that collects a bunch of her stuff. I just saw it in the preview. Sorry, we're ordering it. It comes out in like late January, I think. I'm really excited.
I'll be
like her
stopping
setting
by
it up.
very soon.
Yeah.
So
I
Miles'
don't have any
story
of my Marvel
is
Rainbow stuff anymore.
independent of Peter's in that he's got his own stuff starting with his issue 1 that is great. Like Aaron Davis, who you'll meet in the movie, is his dad, or his uncle.
Uncle.
I'm
Jefferson
going to show
Davis'
this. This was
dad.
the big reveal panel that happened
Yeah.
in, I think, Ultimate Fallout #4, which was the
Yeah.
title of one of those. Again, remember when we said it's a crossover so you can get people to buy extra books, and it's the best and it's the worst? This is one of those. And this was the big, somebody shows up in the costume and everybody's like, I'm sorry, excuse you, Spider-Man is dead and we are all mourning.
That's really not
This
cool
is
of
not
you.
cool.
So he fights a bad guy sort of incompetently, and then he goes away, and there's sort of this little joke that everyone keeps being like, kind of in bad taste, dude. And he pulls the mask off and he goes, maybe the costume is in bad taste. But this was the big dramatic reveal of who was under that costume. There's even a really cute thing where like a random security guard or a cop turns to the guy next to him after they see him and they're like, told you Spider-Man was black.
Ah!
Because, they didn't know. Like,
Yeah.
Yep.
this was, again, the ultimate version. So Miles, spoiler alert, big hit, permanent fixture in the universe.
One of the few
Yeah.
survivors once they
Of the
finally
Ultimate,
turned-
yeah.
They eventually closed down the Ultimate Universe in I thought it was very fun, and someday we're gonna have to.
I love the Secret Wars stuff. But I'm like such
And
a
like
nut for
5
Hickman too. So
5 people made it out, and he was one of them.
He was basically the person, like, with some of his family that they rescued from the Ultimate Universe
and
into
Ultimate
ours.
Reed, who they made evil.
Yeah.
yeah, it almost felt like they ended the Ultimate Universe just as an excuse to pull Miles Morales into the regular 616 universe. Like they were like, yeah, but he's doing his own thing over here, and we want him to do his thing over here with us.
He
So
was
we're
too
gonna
good
close
to
that
put away,
down. Yeah.
so- and they didn't want, like, the rest of the line wasn't still going. So I'm gonna, if it's all right with y'all, I brought some of because they printed a lot of the letters.
Oh,
they printed
boy, are we
happy
gonna-
letters.
All right.
And
There it
they
is.
printed mad letters.
I love your obsession with letters so much.
best.
Like I've learned so much from you just because of the letters.
Reading
Like,
old
don't
letters
know.
and new letters is so
Oh.
different, like the
It's
tone of comics.
Beautiful. They're like little time capsules.
they are. I wish that I could get into them the same way that you do.
Stan Soapboxes, going back and reading Stan Soapbox this week has
good.
been so powerful.
Yeah.
These are the letters.
So I think I'm gonna spare the people who wrote cranky letters because they put their names on them, and I hope they're very embarrassed. And I'll just, if I ever,
Rex Krasinski? What?
Jane Michael Str- Oh.
I mean,
Oh, I guess Ditko was still reading these. Oh, wow. Yikes.
yeah.
Nick
It's
Spencer, I will write Spider-Man one day.
it's oh
That's his
man.
nickname in
Are you-
quotes.
It's heartbreaking, and I'm skipping it, and I'm focusing on the good, which is in Ultimate Spider-Man number 6, the Miles Ultimate. We get this letter, and look, I know you're not watching this show, but in case you are out there, you are 17 years old, and your name is Ethan. Your letter was in Spider-Man number 6, and it's my favorite thing. Dear Marvel Comics, I am a huge fan of Spider-Man, and I would like to write this note. When I first found out about the new Spider-Man, I thought Miles Morales was the author. No hard feelings, Brian Michael Bendis. When I got number 1, I saw Miles' uncle stealing a red tiny box. I've got 4 questions. 1, where is Miles' uncle now? Very important story question. Number 2, when is Miles going to fight the villains? Number 3, when is Miles going to wear the black and red costume, which I think by this time was happening? 4, is there going to be an Ultimate Comics Spider-Man movie? I hope that this Spider-Man learns Stan Lee's saying, with great power comes great responsibility. P.S. If this note is put in number 6, it will make my day. From your number 1 fan, Ethan. I am 10 years old.
Oh.
So this is my comics, but somewhere out there is a 17-year-old named Ethan who's going to see that movie in like 3 weeks.
Yeah.
Anyway, I'm really
That's
excited.
really great.
That's adorable.
Have we talked about the legacy of Miles and how he's influenced like the shape of comic? While I was Spider-Manning up, did I miss? So Miles basically reformed the Ultimate Universe on his own for a bit, and then got brought over, like we said.
Yep.
And Miles brought all of his characters with him, and Aaron Davis is going to be in the movie. That's Prowler, and that's who. If you've seen Spider-Man: Homecoming, and that's the most Spider-Man knowledge you have, it's a lot because of Miles.
Also, his best friend is completely Miles'
Ned
best
Leeds
friend.
is Genki. That is slander.
All right,
It is just
Ned Leeds was Peter Parker's original best friend in the 60s comics. And then,
Well, Ned Leeds was
like
like
in
his
the high
coworker.
school, right? Like,
no.
he was-
Ned Leeds was a reporter at the Daily Bugle.
but they were still like super close friends, right?
Yeah, and then he became the Hobgoblin. It was more of a
Well,
they
he
acknowledged.
eventually did, yeah.
Yeah.
All right, so Ned Leeds was a very, very good friend of Peter
Friend of
Parker, the
Spider.
original 60s comics. And then Genki is Miles Morales' best friend in the Ultimates, and is like an Asian American kid, like really nerdy kid. And
Chubby,
then
nerdy Asian American kid who
Yeah.
helps his best friend be Spider-Man.
yeah.
Who knows the secret and is exactly the character they put in Spider-Man.
Yeah, so then Spider-Man Homecoming comes out and it's like, oh, it's Genki. Ned Leeds, what?
And the problem with that is that eventually Ned Leeds becoming Hobgoblin is betrayal and really important, and I don't see them doing that with this Genki character.
Yeah.
And also it's important because Genki is so important to Miles. When they inevitably introduce Miles, we've already got Genki. And they also, in the comics, Ultimate Spider-Man turned into Spider-Man, just the title Spider-Man. Miles Morales
When
is...
he lands in the regular Marvel Universe, because it's not Ultimate anymore, they just made him run in his own book as Spider-Man. They're going to fix it in December. There's a new number 1 coming, and it's going to be called Miles Morales Spider-Man, just to make that less confusing.
So currently in the Spider-Man book that is called Spider-Man, there's a joke where Spider-Man's friend Genki is known as Ned Leeds while he's undercover. So the comic literally goes like, we see you, movie, what are you doing? And he goes under the pseudonym Ned Leeds to mislead this girl about his real identity, which is very fun.
And if you've only seen Infinity War, this Ned Leeds / Genki character is the kid on the bus.
Yes.
That when Peter Parker goes, hey, to
I need
this
you to
dude,
create a
I need for you to create a distraction. And then he looks out the school bus window, sees, giant floating ship. He goes, oh my God, we're all gonna die. That's that character.
But
if
he's
you've
from
only seen that
Miles'
movie.
world, so it's very distracting to lose him in the end. So the world of Ultimate Spider-Man / Miles Morales is very much incorporated into this, and when they put it in Spider-Verse, I'm very curious how much, like, will we get a Spider-Verse Genki? Will that confuse people, you know what I mean? Like,
That happened in the summer of 2015, so he's been in the regular universe almost as long as he was in his own, and I did not do the math. That's weird. So now he's running around. He's been running with the Avengers. He's run with the Champions. He's in our universe. His name
Miles
is still
Morales?
Spider-Man, Miles Morales.
He's also running around with gold balls. Like when
Yeah.
Goldballs goes to school with them.
Yeah.
So Genki, Miles, and Goldballs all go to the same
Does
school.
anyone want to do a very quick Who's Gold Balls?
Brian Bendis Davis wrote Uncanny X-Men and for a while and introduced just a real lovable dude who can make golden spheres come out of like his body into the air and just fly in every direction.
He's
Sort
kind
of
of like
Volleyball
skee ball
style.
in that way.
Yeah.
And they're bouncy.
Different sizes.
Big Dazzler fan, just generally lovable dude. Unfortunate, his codename stuck, unfortunately. Gold Balls. That was, his name is Gold Balls.
He doesn't like the name, but everyone's like, dude, your name is Gold Balls. You make golden balls. Your name is
does.
Gold Balls. He's like,
Yep.
I don't want to. Hey, come on, that's not Gold Balls. They're like, whatever, Gold Balls.
So we know Aaron Davis and presumably Jefferson Davis, because there's about like 5 frames of Prowler in the trailer, do appear in the Spider-Verse movie. So a lot of that canon, if you want to read stuff that'll relate to the movie, check out Miles Morales' Spider-Man, because that all kind of ties into the Spider-Verse theatrically, which we don't know what it is yet, but those characters do appear. Aaron Davis is his uncle, Miles Morales' uncle, who's a criminal, who Donald Glover plays in the movie, leading us to believe we will later get the character of Prowler in the Spider-Man film universe. But what's fascinating is that Donald Glover campaigned to play Spider-Man. In the early days of Twitter, Donald for Spider-Man was a big thing that was trending, and then he helped influence Miles Morales existing. So, in fact, through 10 years
Slow
of
down because
canon,
that's good.
Yeah.
basically, Donald Glover plays his own uncle in Spider-Man Homecoming.
Okay, well, that's...
Okay. So, but the ethnicity of Miles, like he is Afro-Latino, because he's half black and half, I believe it's Puerto Rican.
Puerto Rican, yeah.
I believe it's Puerto Rican, because Jefferson Davis, who was a criminal and now a reformed cop, is his dad, and then Rio is the mom. So yeah, and there's also a wealth of things to be able to. I hope that they address there.
And there's like, I reread some of his early issues, and like I'd forgotten how moving it is that like it's sort of, because he's 13, right?
Yeah.
And they live in New York City, and like it opens, one of the very first scenes you get with Miles in his own book is him attending the lottery to find out if he'll get to go to charter school.
Oh my God, that's right.
And it's one of those, like, a lot of people really responded where they were just like, yeah, this is
A thing.
This is the world around us. This is the, like, your destiny can change in a moment due to factors completely outside your control, not just because of superpowers, but because of things like, he gets, spoilers, he gets the last slot in the random lottery, like, to get a shot at, like, a better education. And his mom is just, like, dying. Because she's just like, you have a chance, you have a chance. And he's looking around at all these other kids being like, what about these kids? And it's a beautiful backdrop for a Spider-Man.
Yeah.
To be like, okay, I've got this chance, now what? What do I do with it? What do I have to do? What are my expectations? Can I be Spider-Man and do this? Like, it's...
What was there was a series, I think it was called Legacy, like it was just a couple years ago, if I remember correctly, where like they had like the character, like the original characters interacting with like the...
Generations, last
Generations,
time.
that's what it was.
They were
thank you.
wonderful one-shots. Nobody but me noticed them.
Oh
but
my
like,
God.
They were so good, guys.
The Spider-Man Generations almost made me cry because it was like, I can't remember any of the details about it except for like
In
the
each
emotion
of these stories,
of it.
a legacy character kind of met somehow. They fell through time and they met someone. Like, so Laura Kinney ended up on an adventure with Wolverine, a not
and, like,
dead younger Wolverine.
And like Captain Marvel, Carol Danvers ended up running into Marvel at
and
some
Kamala
point. Like,
separately ran into Carol, like
Yeah.
two different one-shots of like them interacting. And it wasn't about like, why are they here, blah, blah, blah. It was just adventures that you can read by themselves of like,
was
the
a-
Thor and Thor one was amazing.
Oh, yeah, yeah. So the Spider-Man one is Miles Morales essentially, I think it was like Spider-Man was knocked unconscious and he was like helping nurse him back to health. And while he was doing that, Peter Parker was talking to Miles Morales about being Spider-Man and what it means to be like, so he's like in this weird like loopy daze and Miles is getting all this gold about how tough it is to be Spider-Man and why it's important to be Spider-Man. And like, that was something that Miles had been struggling with. And like, how do I even come close to living up to the legacy that you created? And like, it was just like this tear-jerking, just like, this is really beautiful handing over of the torch without actually handing over the torch. It was like, you're Spider-Man too, we're both Spider-Man, it's totes cool. It was just like, you could feel like the writers trying to address the audience while at the same time just trying to write a great fucking story.
There's also 2 miniseries, Spider-Man 1 and Spider-Man 2, that are like 5-issue miniseries with
You're
the 2
saying
of them.
plural, Spider-Man.
Spider-Man 1
The
and 2.
first one was the first time that the two characters met, because that was back when they didn't do crossovers with Ultimate and Regular, because
Yeah.
they didn't want it to get more
It was kind of like
confusing.
breaking the rules a bit.
Peter Parker and Miles met in the Spectacular Spider-Man.
This is what we're talking about, right?
yeah.
The 5-part series?
remember.
Yeah, Spider-Men, and then later Spider-Men 2.
And there was also that had my favorite scene ever, which was the how he got his, because he didn't have web shooters yet.
Oh,
And that's how he got his web
right.
shooters.
From Peter.
Not from Peter.
No?
From May and
Oh.
Gwen.
Oh, that's right.
Gorgeous.
Ultimate. Yep.
Because it was the ultimate. It was after they were like, we want you to have this. This is for you.
After Peter
and
died.
handed him. And it was like, I just do.
I also love
that's right. Oh God.
I also love the subverting of Uncle. Like Uncle Ben is the force of wisdom, and then Miles's uncle is the force of he's the first villain. I love that Uncle Aaron Davis is his first villain, and Uncle Ben is the source of like. I just love that they play with that trope in both the universes, and also the use of Jefferson Davis, who's the last Confederate war leader, as like the dad's name. I didn't piece together for like a year when reading it.
Oh really? Like
Do they address why he's
Yeah,
named
his name
that?
is Jefferson Davis. Yeah, his dad's name is a Confederate war general.
every time
for
you
some
said his
reason.
name on our show, I'm just like.
It's just like the.
But that's the name, I know. But like every time, I'm like.
I had forgotten that was.
It's an interesting choice. So the comic really parallels Spider-Man well while building its own universe, and the Spider-Verse movie has an opportunity to really. We know Jake Johnson's Spider-Man's going to be fun. It's got all the legacy, but we're getting our
That's
first.
the actor who's playing Peter Parker in the movie, because there is a version of Peter Parker showing up in this movie, even though it's Miles' movie. That's part of the fun.
So it's really exciting to see what they do with Shamik Moore, who's playing Miles Morales' Spider-Man, because this is his first theatrical, and how they'll build this universe around a story that won't have anything to do with Moreland or the Inheritors or any of that jazz.
Yeah, we're assuming we're not spoiling it for you, because it looks like it's going to be very different from any of the inspiration materials. But as you can see, the basic idea that it's fun to slam a bunch of the spider toys together is what's motivating a lot of this.
Yeah.
Spider toys.
Like, I wouldn't be surprised if they just went like Dr. Octavius route and had that something be the interdimensional thing. Because I mean, that's pretty easy to do.
mean-
Yeah.
Yeah.
And, you know, and it would still make sense,
Especially considering that Dr. Octavius was, for a while, one of the Spider-Men.
right?
Superior Spider-Man.
Superior Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
And Sony's
Spider-Man?
PS4 having Doc Ock as such a prevalent character, it would make sense that Sony would want to use Doc Ock in the Spider-Verse movie if they choose.
Gorgeous arc, by the way, that they did in Spider-Man PS4. Loved that eventual.
I'm right at the beginning of the game, and I'm like, oh no, I don't want. I know what's coming, and I don't. See, this
you
is
love
the
him so
point
much.
of remixing Spider-Man is that like. Yes, it gets tangled and crazy, but you have incredible power because you just drop a name and we're like, no, my heart! Like,
Yeah, Octavius in the PS4 game it hurts.
Oh, it's so well done.
I haven't even finished the Shocker stuff yet because I've just been having too much fun swinging around town.
And that's
I'm
worth
like, I
mentioning.
don't want to end it. I'm just gonna swing around. I guess I should get to the Shocker
You can
story.
also you can enjoy the Black Cat story arc now with friend of the show, Eric.
That is right.
Oh.
Yeah, the heist. Eric,
Should we
I like
talk
that.
about Spider-Geddon, which features Yuri's Spider-Man from PS4?
Yeah, but first I want to hear about Spider-Man.
Spider-Man!
Oh yeah, we gotta do Spider-Man.
So this is once again the pattern repeats itself.
Oh, man.
They were like, you know
Pull
what
it
really
up.
sold well and is oddly well remembered? Spider-Verse from 2014. So we're gonna do that again, but more. We're gonna call it Spider-Geddon. And we are going to have, in association with that, even more random spider people.
I'm gonna make a little
Our own
association.
Jodie Hauser is writing Spider Girls, a team up of several of the characters who've had the Spider Girl thing, which, like, we can have a separate, y'all, can we promise a future episode on all the Spider Girls?
Oh, yeah.
A lot of them, they
So
rule.
great.
We'll throw Jodie in for that one.
fun.
Yeah, absolutely.
So there's a book with the terrifying title Vault of Spiders, which, like, why? Why, Marvel? But Vault of Spiders introduces a bunch of characters, including my new fave, which I just randomly read last week, Ryan friggin' North strikes again. He's a genius. The spectacular Spider-Man.
Spider-Man.
She is
Spider-Man.
Aunt May, if she got the bite. Bitten by, I'm just going to read the intro because it's the text. Once again, they're doing the throw you in the middle thing, as if this has been a thing.
Spider-Man.
Bitten by a radioactive spider, May Parker gains its proportional speed, strength, and agility. She initially uses her powers only to protect her bookish nephew, Peter, who became her responsibility after the death of his parents. But everything changes when she tends to Peter during a robbery instead of capturing the criminal, who goes on to almost kill her husband, Ben. That very night, May swears to use her powers not just to protect Peter, but the whole world too. It's a great responsibility, but with it comes a great power. For the spectacular Spider-Man! She goes, gracious, I'd wager we still haven't found the limits of your new webbing, Peter. I think we can call this test a complete success.
Oh my God, Peter is the tech
Peter
guy in
and
the
Ben
band?
are their
Man in the
team.
chair.
Oh my God.
Peter and Ben are the team. You're gonna cry. Like, she politely dresses down the vulture,
It's the
who
only
is
page.
obviously not thinking of the seniors who have their life savings in that bank.
Aw.
And there's a line where she shouts at him like, anyone can be a jerk who shouts about how smart they are. It takes harder to work with a team. but it's Ryan North, so the line is even better. But I want to clip it out and use it on everything, like, because he's just like, you need help from other people? I'm a genius, and she's like, I'm part of a team, and we're stronger together, and it's the like, I'm in love with this. It's like 8 pages, and it's changed my life.
There is
She's got like a weird
precedent.
chef hat. It's great.
There's precedence for her being a hero because she was also the golden oldie in like what was that, late 70s, early
man.
80s. I can't remember any of the story except that she was called the golden oldie.
Do you have a favorite alt Spider-Man? Because we could go down and like have a little conversation about
Alt Spider-Man?
I mean,
Oh,
Spider-Man,
many.
not Peter.
Who's your favorite not Peter Spider?
Also, just
Right.
on Spider-Man, there is an Aunt May card
Yeah, well,
from
in the-
Series 2 Marvel, I think.
Series
from like,
1.
Is it Series 1 from 91?
I know this because of you.
Yeah. And on the back of those cards, they would, they had the stats and the power ratings and all that stuff, the power meters. But those cards, every single one had different stats on them. And Aunt May's had number of pies baked.
Oh.
And it had a number. And seeing that picture with her, like with the chef hat, I can't help but wonder if there's a callback to that card.
There
You
is
should
a
be strawberry
baking-related plot event. It's beautiful.
It's very important to the story. It's real good. Spider-Man was
Yeah,
fantastic.
so
It
everyone
was
look
so
up the Aunt
good.
May card.
Ryan North.
Number of pies baked is one of, like Mercer and I joke about it all the time. It's one of our favorite cards of all time. It's on my desk right now. Like I love that card. The
So
Aunt
her
May card.
supervillain would be Lex Luthor stealing all the pies.
Yeah.
So
Amalgam universe.
interesting
a
point
pie
is,
nemesis.
is the pie Spider-Man, because there's the Spider-Man from the Hostess Pies commercial.
Spider-Man.
Pie?
Spider-Man.
I can't tell if you're joking.
No, well, you know that.
No,
we
there was
talked
the
about
Hostess commercials,
Pies.
yeah.
Yeah.
There is a story arc in one of the Edge of Spider-Verse stories where they eat and where they do eat and kill the Hostess Pie Spider-Man.
Oh my
Yeah.
God.
Is in fact does appear in the Spider crossover.
I forgot, because that was the big deal with Spider-Verse, is they were like literally every spider we can think
Literally
of.
every
Medium,
Spider-Man,
every
yep.
like blah.
Animated Spider shows up from Spider-Man and His Amazing Friends. It
Yeah,
does not go
there were
well.
a few animated Spider-Mans that
Manga
showed
Spider-Man.
up. There's the manga Spider-Man.
black and
There's
white.
the Japanese TV show Spider-Man that we already covered. If you wanted favorites, that was my favorite. I was like, oh, they went there? Oh, I'm on board. Oh, I'm on board, Mr. Slott. I'm on board.
There's so many though. I mean, they have that Shogun-esque Spider-Man where it's like
right.
his older brother's Venom, but it's like set in and was the one that trained his younger brother Spider-Man. But
Yeah.
it's like it's gorgeous. Takes place on a mountaintop with them fighting each other to be like, hey, we need to work together for this greater big bad. But the way that Venom is decked out, like in like this period era armor, and then how I forget his name in it, the Peter Parker there, and how he is and them battling each other. I'm like, yeah, I totally see this. This is fantastic. I mean, there's so many. I mean, Ashley Barton, I think we mentioned her before, where it's like, she's the daughter of Peter Parker's. Okay, so Peter Parker's daughter gets with
May.
Hawkeye. And then they have Tanya Parker
Oh
Barton.
man, you're down a
Go
hole.
deep,
From
go
the
deep,
Logan
keep
Logan
going.
universe,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah,
I cannot follow
this
you
is
here.
alternate universe. And then so Ashley Barton is like the daughter of her or something like that.
Hold on.
That family
I'm
tree.
remembering this, but I can't get the
Okay, but
details back.
the thing
Yeah.
with Ashley Barton, Spider Bitch was one of her
Oh my God.
aliases. Changed it to the more friendly Spider Woman like later, but
Friendly neighborhood spider bitch.
yeah, she well the thing of it was like
Mark Miller, thanks.
She
Oh,
she
that
had
is such a Mark Miller thing.
Wow. She had a problem with Kingpin, but her problem with Kingpin was that he was running things inefficiently. So she like goes to take him down, and like Peter's like, I think Peter was in that, or a Spider-Man type character was in that. And it's like, oh yeah, we have to take down the beds. She's like, yeah, we got to take down the beds. She ends up like
Yes.
decapitating him with a shotgun handle.
She's a double agent for like 5 issues, and then you're like, what?
What?
Which is great, 'cause you
Yeah.
never expect a spider person to be the bad guy.
So
You
where
know?
did they tell
Exactly,
this
and then
story?
she takes
It was Old
over.
Man-
She
it was
takes
Old
over
Man,
Kingpin's
Old Man Logan,
territory.
It was the
right?
original Old Man Logan. It was Old Man Logan's like first ever arc.
It's pretty darn cool.
It's the
Oh
Ashley
my
Barton.
God.
Yeah.
Now I remember all of that.
She's the big bad of that arc because she was a double
Right?
agent.
Oh my
Can
God.
we talk
totally.
Spidey 2099?
I was about to say we
Oh,
haven't.
I love
Oh,
it. Before we do
yes.
that, I'm just going to give people the context for that Wolverine
Oh.
Old Man Logan thing. There was a storyline in Wolverine a few years ago
Mid-2000s.
before Mark Millar left for the Indies, where he was like, here's a future devastated version of the Marvel Universe and a really messed up version of Wolverine, and it became known, the storyline was called Old Man Logan. It was just issues of Wolverine at the time, but the storyline was called Old Man Logan, and the character was known as Old Man Logan. And that's how you can find it collected now. Now, come 2015, they revisited that during the alternate universe shenanigans of Secret Wars. Whole separate thing, many spider people. But they revisited the Old Man Logan universe. He was a big hit. They brought him out of it into the regular world, gave him his own series, which just hit issue 50. And
this is in like the mainline
Regular continuity.
Now.
actual continuity. Yeah.
now. But back then it was just a potential future that Wolverine might get into if everything went real bad. And one of them was that, yes, Spider-Man's daughter had married Clint Barton and had a kid named Ashley Barton, and that's who this was.
She's-
Known as
she's a
Spider-Woman,
badass.
aka
Yeah, Spider Bee.
Spider Bee.
Spider-Bee.
Spider Bench. We can.
Spider Bench.
We can go. We can go.
Good place.
The
Good
good place.
Yeah.
Spider Bench.
Spider Bench.
She's
You are a
working
messy bench.
awesome.
She
Miguel
is.
O'Hara.
Miguel.
Miguel O'Hara.
Miguel
Miguel
O'Hara.
Spider-Man
2099.
I feel Hector shouting at us from somewhere that we're forgetting Miguel O'Hara.
Now, he is a brilliant character from the Marvel 2099 era of
What's a Marvel
comics.
2099?
Marvel 2099 is an alternate reality
Early
in
90s.
the early 90s when 2099 was not as close as it is now,
2000.
wherein comic characters had alternate reality versions of themselves in the future. So Miguel O'Hara is the grandson or great-grandson, I'm not sure which, of Peter Parker, so his irradiated blood carried on through the generations, and Miguel has
Skipped a couple generations.
Well,
There
missed
was
his
a-
dad.
It didn't occur naturally. It was because he was part of it. He got tested upon
At Alchemax.
At Alchemax.
Now, Alchemax
There
is
it
now
is,
in modern
Alchemax.
continuity, which is interesting because Alchemax is in regular Amazing Spider-Man because Horizon Labs, which is where
There it is,
Spider-Man went to go
Horizon
work.
Labs.
After Superior Spider-Man, where Doc Ock was Spider-Man, he then gets a own company called Parker Industries. But after working at Horizon Labs,
If you're confused, it's okay.
It's
This is
okay.
confusing. Keep
I'm
going.
trying to be as succinct as
what-
possible.
Keep
going.
going.
But Doc Ock being Spider-Man, how does that?
So Doc Ock is Spider-Man because there is a moment when they exchange brainwaves. Doc Ock takes over Spider-Man's body. It is an overrated arc that some people love.
You're gonna go to back to Clone Saga and dump on
I'm gonna say
Superior
Clone Saga
Spider-Man?
is 10 times Doc Ock Spider-Man. I'm gonna say Ben Reilly is better than
Cut the
Superior Spider-Man's
feed.
worst day.
We are done.
Worst
Get
day.
out.
You want to make Spider-Man Iron Man? You do it on your own time. Now, I
You
think
missed the point.
I get they're showing the responsibility of power and responsibility. It could have been a one-off. It could have been a what-if. It could have been a miniseries. It didn't need to take over my main arc for 50 issues. I missed Peter Parker more than anything, and it was a dark 3 years.
And then when you got Peter Parker back,
I loved it, and then they made him Iron Man. I got him back, and then Dan Slott kept making him Iron Man. It took 10 years to get Peter Parker back, and thank you, Chip Zdarsky, Nick Spencer, and all of the characters that know who Peter is at his part.
Yikes!
Oh,
Shots
wow.
fired!
I
Wow.
think
Wow.
that the importance of Spider-Man 2099 is that it shows what a dark Spider-Man can be when it's not in Peter Parker's body, and that's why I like him.
Okay,
because
we got
Miguel
it.
O'Hara.
Which of these are we taking first?
So-
Miguel or Superior?
Let me finish my.
I'll take Superior. Go
Okay,
So-
Miguel.
because it's like, wow.
Miguel is fun, yeah, because you're not tainted. I would say it with a lot of negative connotation that not everyone agrees with. Miguel O'Hara is a
Remember when I
very,
talked about angry letters and how sometimes people are mad about things?
and you guys know how positive I am. It's a rare thing that I hate something. So Miguel O'Hara is fun because he's edgier. He's got a different ness to him. He's instead
he's
of
the 90s Spider-Man.
instead of
Is
the
he extreme?
Instead of
extreme
things clinging,
Spider-Man.
so instead of him climbing by clinging to the walls in an unknown real way, or like the tiny follicles like in Sam Raimi's, he has little actual claws that come out of his
Like
fingers.
little barbs, yeah.
And he uses them offensively. Like when he fights, he scratches and he
scratches.
messes you up. So he's got an awesome costume. He's got a little cape, but he also swears and is violent and will maim you to near death instead of being like friendly neighborhood.
I haven't read that much 2099. Is this still a
Yeah,
thing?
that's
Oh yeah, he's
Oh yeah.
Okay.
He's still around.
Why do people love him so much?
because he's got a darkness that Superior
It works in context. The thing is,
Okay.
within the context, it works very well. And he's also
2099 is
it
like
was
a
weirdly
very
well
gritty
written.
world.
It was more of a
Okay.
Blade Runner Spider-Man.
It's
Okay.
a Nuevo New York, or how do you say?
Nueva York?
Nueva
Yeah.
York.
So New York is a dark place, so Spider-Man has to be darker accordingly. So that way, in that universe, he totally fits. And when he mixes with Peter Parker's universe, there's a dichotomy instead of just two Spider-Men. So it totally plays. And the character is interesting. He speaks in different language. He's got like a different, because he uses future dialogue. And all the villains are just as 2099. So like Punisher 2099 is there. Venom 2099.
Doom 2099.
Doom,
Doom
like,
2099.
Then there was also like Ravage.
We're not talking about Ravage.
2099.
but Venom kind of
At
looks
some
like.
point, I gotta dive into the 2099.
I
but
know.
I
real
missed
weird.
them
2099s are pretty
totally.
fascinating.
This seems really interesting.
X-Men 2099
Was fascinating.
Actually,
Batman
pretty
2099.
fun.
Okay.
That was
So,
actually pretty fun.
2099 you can play as in the Spider-Man game. I use that in Scarlet Spider
They've got
costumes
two
mostly.
of the 29. They got
Yeah,
the
have a
new
white
suit
one.
too, the white one.
So
And you can play him in Shattered Dimensions.
Yes, you
yes,
can.
because he's from that time.
He is also in our world now. Side note, Spider-Man 2099. I don't think the book is going right this second, but it has been
He
for
was
most
doing
of the
Time
last couple of
Spider
years.
trying to save the continuity.
And it was the original artist, Leonardi, who drew the hell out of the first 12 issues, came back for the reboot, and Leonardi draws a mean
It's a
Spider-Man.
beautiful suit.
And the game actually modeled some of the swinging Leonardi did. So when you're in the Spider-Man suit, he swings like Leonardi draws him, which is more aggressive, much like his claws. So that Spider-Man, I agree with being aggressive, unlike a certain Spider-Man that lasted too long.
Oh,
Okay, so it's funny because it's working at a shop has been great because you get to see sort of when big changes happen, people are mad about it usually, or there's like particularly controversial stories, and sometimes you get to see them sort of, you get to see how it all kind of turns out. So like Miles, there were reasonable people who were like, I don't like the idea of killing Peter and somebody else being Spider-Man. Like there were also people who had objections for other reasons about whose opinions we don't care. But like that, you know, that mix of early reactions, I got to see that over the years turn into basically everyone on Earth being like, nah, good call, great character, loved it. Like, and then there are other stories where like Superior Spider-Man happened, people were real mad about it.
real.
Yep.
And
Yep.
it was sort of divergent. Like I count that in the majority of people ultimately got won over for me, like
sure.
from the survey of people that I know and saw at the shop. Like, I was really surprised how they took a story that seemed like it could have been a real disaster and made a story that people really loved and got a lot out of. And why did it seem like it was going to be a disaster? You want to tell us what happened there?
Well, I mean, when you really think about the origin of Superior Spider-Man, I mean, okay, Doc Ock and Spider-Man are battling, you know, as they are wont to do. And then, you know, it just gets to the point where it's like, oh no, Doc Ock is about to die. He just took it that far because, you know, Spider-Man's going to hang back a bit, but he decided to go too far. Switches brains with Spider-Man, Peter Parker. So Peter spends the last moments of his life in Doc Ock's body and dies.
So it was a bad guy wins
Cancer.
A
story.
bad guy wins.
Yeah, which was, you know, gave rise to mixed feelings in a lot of people. But then what happens?
But then, like, I mean, a number of things. I mean, he falls in love with, what's her name, Anna Maroney.
I think so,
I mean,
yeah.
does that, and just like the whole, like, life pattern of who is now Peter Parker. I mean, the way that this translates into Spider-Verse is he seems to literally be one of a kind. I mean, all of these other spider people that he runs into and that he collects to go up against the inheritors, he doesn't run into another version of himself. So that, for me, like, puts in the context, it's like, because all of those dimensions, all of those Doc Ocks, none of them thought, I'm going to switch brains with my greatest nemesis. And then it's just like, the cojones on this guy to like even do that.
So, and
I find it intoxicating.
one of the things that people really responded to, and this was, I have a like really strong personal feeling. Like I had a friend who was DC only for like most of his life, and then like Winter Soldier kind of got him, but he was like nothing but that, DC and Winter Soldier. That's it. That's all I'm reading. And then
vibes.
like because he loves bad guys, and so Superior Spider-Man was the book that hooked him on the Marvel universe
Yeah.
because he got
No way.
intrigued
Villain.
by this, like, so what happens is essentially Doc Ock's like, cool, got the body, I'm in Spider-Man's body, I have all of his, like, great, perfect victory, and then it's like, except I have, like, Jiminy Cricket came with me. What? And he's got, essentially, the memory of Peter becomes his conscience.
Yeah, his Jiminy Cricket is a good way to put
And
it.
he sets out to prove, like, he kind of gets the heroism bug, essentially, not to make an arachnid bug terrible.
make it.
Near
Go ahead. Go ahead.
He kind of gets the heroism bug, and so he still kind of goes about it in a Doc Ock way where he's arrogant, and it's called the Superior
Super
Spider-Man because he's
arrogant.
convinced he can do this better than Peter would have. But essentially what you're watching is him get this, like Peter ultimately wins in that, like, he's kind of redeeming Doc
Ock.
from Beyond, because Doc Ock can't help but try to live up to, and like he's kind of turning into, like, you stole my body, but you're turning into me. Like,
I love that miniseries or What If. It sounds amazing. Tell me where I can buy it, not in my main canon
sometimes
storyline.
stories that go on for 60 years have to spend 3 years doing a thing that.
It was brilliant.
I
Like
know.
as far as
It's
stories
like-
are moving, and like Dan Slott, very inventive, and I love how it made me appreciate Peter Parker.
It also,
you have to
it also
purge
gave us an
memories.
amazing Spider-Man villain, which is Spider-Man.
Right.
There's that. There's so is that. Spider-Man is his own villain.
Well, and every time you have the two of them together, and it's I wonder if he's going to figure out that, like, because they spend the first few issues together with Peter being like, he can't know that I'm a future version of him, because then he's going to know that everything goes horribly wrong. It's like, I've got to pretend that I don't know who he is and like do this whole thing. And then he figures it out, and it's just, oh, it's so dark.
When you start telling the fans he's dead and he's going to stay dead, and they're like, we don't believe you, but we're still upset, so don't tell us that, I get that. That leaves bad feelings for some folks. And at the time, they were playing it very much like, nah, that's Peter's ghost. He's not, like, this is it now.
Yeah.
And I get that you're like, you don't want to spoil the story before it's
But
done.
of course Peter's coming.
But I think I got Clone Saga'd. Like, that was the first time, because I liked the Clone Saga. So the moment where everyone was like, Ben Reilly's not the real Spider-Man, I was like, Doc Ock's not the real Spider-Man. Like, I got the exact emotional thing, which is great storytelling, and I have to give full credit to Dan Slott. The way they landed the story with the clone body of Peter Parker being the body that Doc Ock takes over in modern Spider-Verse is brilliant, because that gives Superior Spider-Man fans all of the wants and needs fulfilled. It gives me Peter Parker back. I love how it landed, but it was just the amount of time where I would read the die is cast in every issue. He said the die is cast in every issue. It drove me nuts. But like the vernacular definitely like got under my skin, where I was like, I love this over here. I would love a separate title, but I didn't have a title that felt like Peter Parker. And that like made me miss him, which is the goal. But it was just a long time to miss a character that is so beloved that we're talking about hundreds of versions of him.
I will say, like, when I first heard about, like, because I hadn't been reading Spider-Man for about a year by that point, and then I was like, wait, like, they're going to switch brains? Like, I was like, this is stupid.
I
this
thought it
is
sounded like
really
a terrible idea. I was like,
stupid.
bad guy wins, steals his body, cool?
I have learned that my initial reaction to any of these big events is that 8 times out of 10, I'm going to own the graphic novel.
Yeah.
There will be 2 where I'm like, that was a terrible idea. You should have never done it. But 8 times out of 10, I'm like, they're bringing Bucky back. They're going to, oh God, he's going to have a robot arm. Oh God, Bucky's a...
Oh my God, that's one of the best retcons ever.
And then you come out there going like, well,
It
Captain
shouldn't have
America's
worked.
cool again.
It shouldn't have worked, and it did.
Fudge.
And like they completely rewrote the Golden Age comics of like, oh no, like Captain America was wearing the Spanglies as a distraction. Bucky was the actual real hero. Like,
Guys, they brought
oh my
Gwen-
God, like,
Brubaker.
They brought Gwen Stacy back and made it cool. Let's give that credit.
Should not
They
have
brought
worked.
Gwen Stacy back twice. There's Gwenpool now. We have 2 Gwen Stacys, and
She's
apparently
not
that's
Gwen,
okay.
though.
She's not Gwen.
She's Gwenpool.
But like the joke's there.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
Spider-Gwen totally works. I would never have believed you 5 years ago. You tell me that Gwen Stacy gets
great.
bit by a spider and that's one of my favorite characters. No. Oh, wait. That's a version that I can totally... And I can agree with Superior Spider-Man being very important. I can agree with all those things. But Spider-Man, let's give credit to his versatility as a character that we've listed 40, 50 different
my
I
Spider-Man
have so many more though.
that
So
we could
many.
read an entire run of, and in these movies and different mediums, they can make these things exist because his power and responsibility, his iconic suit, his toy ability, his nature is so innately how we want to be because we're all underdogs that there's nothing like Spider-Man to me.
Spider-Punk. I'm just going to mention Spider-Punk.
Which you can
Spider-Punk.
play at PS4.
Yes.
Yeah.
Read
great
that tagline.
With great power comes no future.
No future for you.
And yeah, Spider-Punk is like the best like Spider-Man meets East Coast Punk meets V for Vendetta. It's
it is
just,
not surprising to me that you love him.
Oh, it's
such a Taliesin character.
Oh, it is. It's such a great. I'm like, and the whole thing of just like having a Spider-Man that's just like it's just yeah. Fuck the police. Fuck the president. Fuck everybody. We're burning it all goddamn down.
And he's the
Burn
Prowler.
it
He's
down.
Hobie Brown.
I know it's the fucking Prowler too.
I
It's just,
love
Yeah.
Prowler
So
getting his comeuppance back in main pop culture. Prowler's amazing.
I used to have. I mean, like, oh man. At some point, I will have Jeffrey goddamn Thorne on here because he was the great Prowler like
Advocate.
Oh, back in like the early 2000s, late 90s, it would just like you would just say the name Prowler in the comic book store, and you would just hear from the other side of the shop just Prowler. Oh no, you don't know. This is what you do with the Brave. It's like, and he would give you like a 12-issue miniseries pitch, and you'd be like, oh my god.
People forget how, like in the John Romita Sr. era, Prowler would help Spider-Man a lot.
Shit, who's the Prowler?
So Prowler. So
yeah.
Hobie Brown is Prowler, and Hobie Brown uses his
A Prowler.
criminal. He's the original Prowler. Uses his criminal prowess to invent these gauntlets. When Donald Glover says, "Oh, you got climbers," he's referencing his future as the Prowler. And Donald Glover basically will play the Prowler if they go that way in the movie. But he's a criminal that uses his tech know-how to build a suit that then loots things. And it was in the era of Spider-Man where like mob warfare was really popular, and he steals under the Kingpin, under all sorts of people. But
I mean,
then
this is mid 70s, right?
Yeah, like issue 76, I think he was invented.
So like
somewhere
this
in
is like the relaxing of the comics code. They can do a
great
little bit more with
costume, too.
crime and stuff. Yeah.
It's going to be a little bit before that if it's
Is it?
76, because 96, 78 is the drugstore line, so they haven't relaxed the code yet. But
Okay.
So it's about 2 years before the code drops altogether.
Goes straight.
But yeah,
code
he goes
doesn't drop
straight-
till 2011.
Oh, but for those issues, sorry. 96 was when
Yeah.
they first
Oh,
released.
yeah,
Screw
yeah.
you. So Hobie Brown goes straight sometimes. He helps Spider-Man out sometimes. He basically uses his criminal know-how with Spider-Man going like, I don't know how we got this, it's fine, we'll sort it out later. And that's a really fun dynamic for someone so responsible. So Prowler is a very underutilized character until now where he's a Spider-Man. He's in the Spider-Verse movie. Like finally people realize how multifaceted Prowler is. It's a great character.
If you're wondering why we said two different names for him, that's because Ultimate Spider-Man, Ultimate
Is
Universe
in-
Prowler, he is Miles' uncle. Our universe, he's Hobie Brown. But the two characters will tend to bleed on each other, into each other.
Oh, we haven't even gotten to Jessica Drew.
Yeah, we didn't even do that.
We haven't even talked about Jessica Drew.
There's a
So
Spider-Girl
many.
episode.
Cyborg Spider, we haven't. Spiders Man.
Spiders Man, the new one.
Spiders Man.
Spiders Man. Spiders Man.
He shoots spiders, right?
No. Do you not know about Spiders Man?
I
Oh,
don't
I'm
know
so
that I
sorry.
do.
I love Spiders Man. Spiders
Is he
Man,
new?
Spiders Man is from the multiverse of like various weird Spider-Man. Spiders Man is a colony of hyper-intelligent spiders with a collective consciousness in a Spider-Man suit.
Yeah.
It's
Yes.
Oh,
so wrong.
that's wrong.
Yeah. Spiders
that is-
Man.
And they played it something similar in the Alex Ross Earth X. Remember Alex
Yep.
Ross's Earth X, where they had basically the guy's face was the Spider-Man mask with teeth?
Yeah.
That was also a Spider's Man back in the
Ooh,
day.
you know who we haven't talked about that I would love to hear more about because I'm not as familiar with this particular Spider-Man, Cosmic Spider-Man.
He is in the Spider-Verse, the new and old. He's in Spider-Geddon and Spider-Verse. So Cosmic Spider-Man is when Spider-Man was granted the powers Cosmic, which is what Silver Surfer has,
Right.
which is what many other
So
characters...
like there's a character named Captain Universe who has been like 3 or 4 different incarnations of characters, but Captain Universe has the power Cosmic.
And
it's almost like a Green Lantern ring, if I understand it correctly, where like the power Cosmic is like, I choose you, Peter
It's
Parker.
bestowed upon you.
Yeah,
And-
so like Peter Parker becomes Captain Universe and like has super duper power Cosmic on top of Spider-Man powers.
And this happens right before the Todd McFarlane takes over. So this is issue
Like
like
late
291,
80s. Late 80s,
292.
yeah.
Yeah, late 80s. And basically he has all the Silver Surfer abilities plus all the Spider-Man abilities. And that kind of like, it was a toy and it was a great like Deus Ex Machina, but then that got retconned with time, but they brought him back as a multiverse option. So there is a spider in the Spider-Verse that still has the power Cosmic, and in some iterations he is Captain Britain as well. So there's also a Peter Parker who is Captain Britain who is power Cosmic. So he's 3 things. He's the turducken of Spider-Man.
But like that, the turducken of Spider. But
Oh,
like
no.
I remember in the Spider-Verse book written by Dan Slott in 2014, like how big of a deal it was. They were like, okay, so there's this one Spider-Man in this one universe, and it's just like, oh, we've got to go get that guy. Oh yeah, let's go get that guy.
Do you remember the first Spider-Man that they killed in Spider-Verse?
Remember?
Peter Parker.
Peter Parquois. Yeah.
1602.
Oh, that's
1602
right.
was
Proud of
beautiful.
Amy.
Yeah.
I'm so proud of Amy right now.
Oh, I love
They killed Peter Parquois was performing on the Globe Theater as the Spider. He got eaten.
The Armstrong Park bit I thought amazing. In Spider-Verse 1, I think it was, they kill a Spider-Man in the opening. They literally like, you meet Spider-Man, he's Peter Parker, he's sleeping, and Jonah's like, get to Armstrong Park, and he lands, and Moreland kills him, and as far as you know, he's Peter Parker, but then you realize he's Peter Parker of the Moon Colony, and he's Spider-Moon Man.
Spider-Man Man.
That's awesome.
But
So,
yeah, you meet a guy, they kill him off, and you realize he's an alternate universe. But that's the fun of these movies and these books is you can just like decimate characters.
because these two threw it out there, Marvel 1602 was a Neil Gaiman written miniseries. I want to say early 2000s, ish.
Really mid-ish.
1602.
Yeah.
I don't know. I read things in chunks.
Yeah.
So.
It's beautiful. It's basically What If Marvel Universe, but it's the year 1602, mostly European based. and features just really, really lovely, wonderful versions of the Marvel Universe. If you're not already hooked from me saying Neil Gaiman writes the Marvel Universe in the year 1602, then this might not be the book for you.
It's probably definitely not, because the tagline itself should. That you either like that or you don't.
It's so good.
It's
I haven't
great.
reread it in years, but I remember loving the heck out of it. So yeah.
So if there's one Spider-Man each of you guys think we should jump on, because we almost did that, and then
almost
we
did
got
that.
I think we half of us did it, and then we kept talking.
I mean,
it
so here's the deal. Like, I actually really love Superior Spider-Man, Otto Octavius. I fell in love with the character, and I think that a lot of that comes from like my seminary days, because I love a good story of reconciliation and reformation. Like, I love like a good like villain becoming good, like a good redemption story. So like when you take one of the very first worst of the Spider-Man villains and then give him the power and responsibility of Spider-Man and see that start to reform him, and him struggling with, wait, but I don't want to be a good guy, but I have to be I'm compelled to be good and to be better at being good than Spider-Man was, but how am I failing at being good? Like him like coming to terms with that and processing
That he's struggling, that he's trying.
The struggle of trying to be good was something unique that I hadn't seen in Peter Parker. And not a fault of Peter Parker, it's just the design of the character.
I will reread Superior before the next time. Before we do the Spider-Girl show, I will read all of the amazing he's in, and I own all of the floppies of Superior. I own everything because I'm a collector, so I will read every single Superior and see if my opinion changes because of that pitch. Because I don't want to dislike anything.
Yeah,
So
like
I will
there's
try
an
that.
angle of
You're
like
allowed to
reformation.
dislike
Like
things.
But I don't want to.
I just love a good reformation, like a good reconciliation story where like a character can reconcile themselves to themselves and to the world at large and be like, oh, I was wrong. Because even in that story, I remember seeing like if I remember correctly, it's been a few years, but like I remember like Otto Octavius, like you see his birth, like you're like, or his childhood where he was abused by his mom and dad, and like you see this like this thing, like his childhood made him into this villain, or like you see like the areas where like, oh, if he had had a different dad or a different life experience or like a different income or like all these things led to him being this awful, terrible villain. And like, I feel like so oftentimes that's the actual narrative that gets lost, because it's so easy, especially with the news today, to be like, they're an evil villain. And it's like, they're a broken human who like has a very unfortunate story, and it's easy to villainize them, but that came from somewhere. What if a person had stood in this person's life and made it go a different direction? You know, like I like those kinds of stories, like, you know, so anyway, I don't know, like.
Something beautiful with Spider-Verse is that you get like little samplings of all of these different spider people, and you know, you can then choose to, you know, delve back down in comics to then like see their origin, if there is one. One of the ones that Taliesin and I really enjoyed.
We're both going to mangle this.
It's an Indian version of Spider-Man.
Oh,
Literally the Indian Spider-Man.
Yeah. Pavert.
Parkil.
Pahakar.
Prabhakar.
Yeah, it's
It's Pavitr, first name, and then Prabhakar
We're definitely
for the
mangling
last
it.
name. So more than likely we mangled it, and I very much apologize for that. But
Harviter?
he's
Like Parvitr?
Yes.
Harviter, maybe?
maybe,
maybe,
but like all of
Harviter,
the names,
which
in
is
this
very
are,
cool,
like,
'cause Peter,
Indian versions
Harviter.
of like. There's even a Mary Jane named like Mira Jane. It's really like
he has
distinct.
Uncle Bih, like B-I-H, I want to
His
say.
costume is great.
His
dude.
costume's
His
amazing.
His
costume
costume
is
is
awesome.
so excellent because he's a simple Indian boy, and he just wants to do the right thing after his Uncle Bay gets killed. Of course, there was a woman that was running, you know, like, oh, people were chasing her. He's like, oh, I don't have time right now. I'm not going to do it. And then Uncle Bay tried to help her and ends up being slain. So then he's like, oh yeah, with great power comes great responsibility, kind of a thing. But there's like demons involved with his whole thing. He gets his powers from a yogi. You know, the powers of the spider. And in Spider-Verse, he's one of the first spider people that you're introduced to, well, at least in Edge of the Spider-Verse, where he actually lives. Yeah, where Superior Spider-Man, you know, does the jump to be like, hey, you've got some moves. You'll do. Come with me or die. So that's that.
So they're just kind of drafting spider people, right?
Yeah.
They're like, let's get that one, and we need you, and
I love that this character exists specifically because they were trying to publish a Spider-Man book in India for kids.
I like
yeah,
it.
it literally
Yeah.
came from. It was published for that which is so cool.
Paviter, and it's a really nice tradition. I want to delve like deep into everything that is Paviter. I would just keep on saying his name because I like it.
I think he's going to show up in the Spider-Verse movie. I feel like
think so, too.
he's one of the bigger
I think
ones.
so, too.
I also think Spider-Man 2099 is going to be like a moment for the deep cut fans because we haven't seen him in the trailers, but I think he's such an iconic.
Look,
I really want that.
We haven't talked about her, or the two versions of her that I really like, but there's also Spider-Woman, Jessica Drew.
I
Okay.
love Jessica Drew.
Hilarious because she's probably one of the first official of these Spider spin-off characters and has basically nothing to do with Spider-Man's mythology. Go.
She doesn't. She was basically raised.
I remember being
her
so
parents
confused by this.
were Hydra agents, and she was experimented on as a child, given spider-based powers as a child, trained by Hydra and the Taskmaster to be eventually be a double agent within S.H.I.E.L.D. But then Nick Fury basically turned her, and
She's a double super secret inside out agent. It's weird.
yeah,
Triple agent.
and like just basically became super agent with spiderish powers, and without permission started calling herself Spider-Woman. Although the ultimate version of her, which I find really interesting, she is in fact one of the clones
I
of Peter
love
Parker.
that twist.
She's the only clone of Peter Parker that
Yeah.
survived. She has all of Peter's memories except now she's Spider-Woman.
She shows up at the
out-
beginning of
Ben-
Miles
Yeah,
and
no,
she
I
is
remember
mad
that.
about it.
Oh,
And then
that
she
makes
and Miles
so much
kind
more
of have a
sense
weird,
to
there's a lot of weird that happens.
That story
Yeah.
makes
It's
so
amazing.
much more sense because I actually did reread the first few of Miles and I was like, why? I don't. Why? Like,
look
I
like
mean,
She's literally Peter Parker.
Oh, Silk.
And we didn't even have.
Wait,
so
we did so.
First
We-
We mentioned her, but
we didn't really talk about her.
we're gonna get yelled at in a minute because
yeah, I think
'Cause it's topic time.
So when we do Spider-Girls, we'll talk Silk, we'll talk Jessica Drew, we'll talk about Jessica Jones.
Oh,
we'll
and, like,
we'll talk about Renew Your Vows.
and God, what's the other? Oh God, the
Aranya?
other. Oh God, she's so good.
Corazon.
Yeah, we'll talk about the Avengers book
Anya
that had all the
Corazon, aka
all the
Aranya.
Spider Women in it. It was Black Widow, Spider Woman.
We're gonna talk Mayday Parker longer.
May
Yeah.
fucking
Yeah.
Day
And
Parker.
let's talk about Arachnia, Battle World.
Oh God.
There's so much.
Oh, there's so much.
There's
All right,
so
topic
much.
time.
Please feel free.
Okay, welcome
Yeah.
to the Wednesday Club. This is our
Fine.
5-minute topic, which is drawn from the various suggestions from y'all in the chat. Mackie, Amy Dallen, Coy Jandreau, Markeia McCarty, Taliesin Jaffe.
All right.
What is our topic today, Taliesin Jaffe?
This one, oh boy, this is going to be interesting. This comes from Illyrophile. I can't quite pronounce that.
Okay.
AI.
You have me nervous.
You should be, because you're in a production of the Rocky Horror Show.
What?
So am I.
Which character are you performing? I mean, we're already ruined. And what other comic book characters would you want to recast in some of the other roles? So let's
Oh my
make.
God.
Let's we'll save for ourselves. Let's cast the Rocky Horror Picture Show
With Spider People?
With Spider People, or we could go off the rail if we want to.
Okay.
But like, let's get weird. Let's do
Man,
this.
I am so not familiar with
5
Rocky Horror.
minutes.
Can we reel
On
off
the
the
clock.
actual characters?
Frankenfurter.
Frankenfurter.
Magenta.
Brad, Janet,
Brad Majors, Janet Weiss.
Riff Raff,
Riff Raff, the narrator.
Columbia,
Columbia.
Okay, Frankenfurter
Dr.
is Tim
Scott.
Curry's character.
Dr.
Yes.
Scott,
Eddie.
Remember that.
and Eddie. I think that's
That's
solid.
9 is Blend.
Nine's beautiful. Those are the
Who's
real.
the beautiful muscle guy? That's Riff Raff?
That's Rocky.
That's Rocky.
That's
That's
Rocky.
Rocky.
I guess that'd be number 10 if we count.
That'd be number
Okay.
10. Yeah, because you and
So
both
if
of
we're
us
doing
are performing.
Spider People, like Superior Spider-Man is Frankenfurter.
You know,
No?
Not as much like fun sexuality to him, but like it'd be funny to
fair.
watch.
That is fair.
Old
Superior Spider-Man, there's like a sort of like, hey ladies, I'm not like a pudgy old
Yeah,
white
but I
guy
can't
anymore.
see that
No,
because he's
not
Doc
where-
Ock.
yeah, no, still
fair.
Doc Ock in my head.
Fair.
Doc Ock is Dr. Scott.
Oh my God, Doc Ock is Dr. Scott.
Because he's like, oh, like he
Octor
makes
Scott.
up weird language.
Wow.
Octor
He's
Scott.
Octor Scott.
Octor Scott.
Scott.
Oh,
Wow.
Scott.
Deadpool's
Get
the narrator.
Deadpool is
Deadpool's the
definitely.
narrator.
Yeah, that
100%.
works. That works.
Oh,
breaks
we're
the
not doing
fourth wall.
Spider People? I thought all of it
They're
was
Spider
People.
friends.
We can do both ways. I
do
suggested
both.
Spider People. Tal says we can use anybody, so
I say we can use
We
anybody
can have some
since it's too
choices and
broad
some
and too
backups.
weird.
I think Magenta is Ashley Barton because like she'll do what needs
Oh.
to be done.
Yes.
You
I'm
know,
into that.
she's on the side of her side and the people that are on her side. So
I mean, Peter's Brad, right? A version of Peter is Brad.
Oh no, that means
Oh,
Ben
60s.
Riley is Eddie.
Yes, because he's the clone.
he's the clone.
With
That
only
makes
half a brain.
sense. Oh.
Yeah,
makes
that
so much
works too
sense.
well.
And they eat him.
So is Janet? She's not Mary Jane. She's
No.
not Gwen
No.
Stacy.
It's not Gwen Stacy.
Betty
Wait,
Brant.
is she Aunt May?
Yikes!
I think.
Yikes.
Oh.
Oh my God, I have a Spider-Man Frankenfurter.
Okay.
It's the Prowler. It's
Aaron Douglas or Hobie?
Hobie, because Spider-Man, Punk Spider.
Oh, that totally does work.
Spider
Oh
Punk
yeah,
works.
actually.
Oh,
works.
wow.
Yeah.
Yeah, Spider-Punk.
that.
Who else do we have?
Riff Raff's tough. Riff Raff's great.
Which one is
Remind
Riff
me.
Raff?
Riff Raff's the one. He's the
Hello.
butler with the
Oh,
stringy
that's
hair.
Riff Raff. Okay.
Oh.
The
Evil.
Jackal. If Ben Riley's gonna be
Oh.
I mean, would he be superior?
Actually, yeah.
He'd be like a messed up Aunt May.
Oh man.
Like a new alternate universe Aunt May who's like,
Oh.
What about Carrion?
Oh, Carrie.
Oh,
wow, you're
Carrion?
Carrion is
Oh.
Riff Raff. He just comes in that like he's like
Oh
decaying.
my
and he's got the little
God! Just like
loincloth
and
on.
making everybody decay around
Yeah.
him.
Oh, man.
Oh man, did we do Columbia yet? We haven't done Columbia
No.
yet.
Columbia's tricky.
Remind me, Columbia.
She's the one in the spangly outfit with the spangly top hat who's kind of trying to be
So
chipper
some
about
kind of Mary
everything,
Jane.
but eventually snaps.
Bombshell.
Oh, Gwen Stacy Carnage.
Ultimate Bombshell.
Oh, poor Bombshell.
Ultimate Bombshell is exactly that.
I feel like I want Gwen in there though. Gwen's kind of.
I mean, I feel like Mary Jane is the put on a show Sparkles like classic 80s supermodel
Yeah.
Mary Jane.
Yeah,
That's
I
fair.
mean, Magenta
Groovy.
and Columbia as Gwen and Mary Jane, I like in some combination.
Oh man, this is so deep. I know. I think we've got. I mean, we've got
We've
Dr.
got a few.
I mean, unless we want to go for more Spider narrator than Deadpool, because Deadpool is. I mean, Deadpool's funny, but
We're
like.
going Spider narrator.
Spider-Man narrator.
Where does
Adam
Hitmonkey
Webb.
come in? Where can we put
Narrator.
Hitmonkey?
Oh, Hitmonkey, yes, Hitmonkey. Hitmonkey should be in there with Spider Monkey somewhere.
They're in the musical numbers. They're just
Yeah, no,
yeah,
they're
they're
the
part of the
Transylvanians.
chorus.
They're the Phantoms.
Definitely.
Yeah, the
Spider
Transylvanians.
Ham's in there too.
Yes.
Transylvania.
All of the
Actually,
animals are-
Transylvania, Spider Ham really works well for the narrator for the
He does because he
investigator.
breaks the fourth wall.
Yeah.
He's aware of his surroundings.
Yeah, it's pretty good.
Yes,
It's pretty
Spider
good.
Ham.
Spider-Ham.
Yes,
Spider
Peter
Ham's in
Porker,
there.
Spider
So
Ham.
did we ever? Have we decided who Brad and Janet are? Because I don't feel like we've actually like
Well,
nailed
we
that
kinda said
down.
a version of
Peter is
Peter
definitely
Parker.
Brad Majors.
But the '60s Brad.
Yeah,
Like or
like-
'60s
like
Peter
Steve
Parker. Like
Ditko.
Ditko.
Or
Janet's
Until Tales
Janet's
Out.
the tough one. Janet's definitely the tough one.
I mean, because not really Eddie Brock or Flash Thompson. I was trying to see where they might fit in there. But
Yeah.
it's like,
No.
not really.
Flash should be an okay Rocky. like Flash Thompson, like dense and
Them
like
shorty shorts.
Yeah, the short shorts on Flash. That
Like-
totally plays.
wow.
Dense and idiotic, sure.
And Frankenfurter could be Eddie, the vindictive, thinks he controls everything, but he's not as bright as he thinks he is.
That's fair.
goodness.
That's
Eddie Brock?
fair.
yeah. I
Is the
can't think of a
control freak.
Janet though.
But I can't think of a good Janet. Like,
Janet's
Innocent,
tough.
oh, we've
naive.
got 40 seconds left.
I know. All right, we can do this.
Betty
Liz
Brant-
Allen, just
Liz
go.
Allen?
Betty Brant?
Oh,
Yeah, maybe.
Betty Brant's like, she doesn't realize her husband is Hobgoblin.
Well,
She's very
'cause-
like, hoo hoo.
Liz is his first
Maybe
girl, right?
Yeah.
They don't have to be in a
I
relationship.
kind of love it.
necessarily.
I kind of love
You
it.
know, it's a different kind of relationship.
It is a different kind of relationship.
Yeah, I mean, well, if it's a different kind of relationship, then '60s Peter Parker and '60s Aunt May also kind of work.
There's,
if we just
there,
accept
there's,
that
to,
they're
there's,
just
to, yeah. To be
familial.
fair, this is a show where you can really play around with it.
We're talking about personality type.
Yeah.
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 I'm into that.
Genki works.
I'm into Genki. I'm
Let's
into
do it.
Genki as Janet Weiss. I'm into it.
All right, there we go.
I think we
That's
did it
the
in
rock
5
hour.
minutes.
Oh.
We did it.
Very,
Yay.
very specific.
So many spiders.
So
You can
many.
watch this quality entertainment every Wednesday on twitch.tv/geekinsider and at Project Alpha. That was our 5-minute topic. Thank you very much.
Matt Key,
Amy Dallen.
Coy Jandreau.
Markeia McCarty.
Taliesin Jaffe.
this has been the Wednesday Club. Thank you. All right, so we've got a couple
Like
minutes
2
left.
minutes? Oh.
I suppose we should wish everyone a happy Turkey Day.
Yeah.
Yeah, happy
Yes.
Thanksgiving for those of you in the U.S. and for those of you
for the
outside of
rest
the
of you,
U.S. We eat a lot of turkey on a holiday. So.
And stuffing's even better.
May it gather all of your loved ones from all dimensions in one place, and may it not be full of spiders.
Oh, waited.
Wow,
Yeah,
wait.
yeah,
I like it.
And I'm
Gather the
thankful,
family.
Thankful
Well
for
done.
all versions
Death
of
to
Peter
Spider.
Parker, all versions of Miles Morales. I'm thankful
Except for
Spider-Man.
Superior.
I'm gonna
Except for
reread it.
Superior.
I'm gonna try. He's
It's
my,
okay. I'm still mad about Hydra Cap. We had a whole thing about One More Day a
Oh,
few weeks
Hydra
ago. We're
Cap.
all
Everyone
there.
has a thing. that
Everybody's
we
got
don't
'em.
appreciate.
We've all got our
characters.
comic stories that we're not all about.
He's my can of yams, man. He's just like he's there. I don't really touch it on Thanksgiving.
Your
It's
can
just-
You haven't had the proper candy yet.
I haven't apparently.
That's fair.
I haven't read Superior correctly. He's my can of yams.
We need
Make that into a
yams.
sweet potato pie.
Ben Riling's the stuffing.
Guys,
Peter Parker's the turkey.
This was so much fun. Thank you both for being here.
one more time,
thank you so
one more
much.
time, especially our two guys. Tell them where they can find you, especially this week, because they just watched the Wednesday Club. Where can they find you?
You go first, Coy.
You can find me today on a show with this lovely lady called Collider Heroes that we do every week. You can also find me on Collider Live yesterday, and you can find me on my Instagram at that name and my Twitter at that name. And I love interacting with you guys, so send me stuff and let's talk comics and movies and life.
Yay.
And you're great.
Okay, I know where you can find me. All right, so yeah, you can turn on the DC Universe platform. There is DC Daily that will be going on. We do Monday through Friday, so yes, there is an episode there. And then tomorrow you can catch me on Fangirling. We have our Thanksgiving special, our Feast Giving, as one is wont to do. So yes, that is a very fun episode. You should definitely enjoy that. And then a lot of Geek and Sundry things. Vampire. Go ahead and do starter kit Vampire the Masquerade.
Yes!
We'll see you guys,
We'll see you guys
again
next week.
soon. Have a wonderful week.
Happy holidays.
Happy holidays.
Happy comic reading.
Did you change clothes?